Well, folks, how y'all doing today? Oh, it's another day kicking back. Okay, well, we got a lot of unpleasantries to go through today. Tons of them. Lots of them. At some point, we may even have to break into Ephesians and say, we're just going to get out of Ephesians 6 now. Why armor God? No reason to go in naked, bro. Why? Well, you find, my son, these people, they're tricksy. A lot of lies. As it's described here in this particular wording translation, wiles, deceptions, tricksiness, tricksiness. Yes, it's one of the things you know about the devil. See, other people can be wrong, they can be confused, they can say the wrong words, but these people here try to be tricksy. So, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to stand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. Well, it seems that, this pacifist stuff, first let's set that aside. There's always this, Jesus said, sell your cloak and buy a sword. He also said, be prepared for people to come on you like thieves at night. Like those thieves came onto those people at night at Waco. No matter how you want to cut it, it's funny. People have been trying to set that aside lately. It's like, look, 26 fucking kids, 25 kids, 86 people killed, fire, building on them. Government did that. That's it. Now, you can play games like that was like Charlie in South Vietnam, and we had to wipe them out because they were down in the tunnels, and we just had to nuke them. Okay, when it actually was Charlie, the rationale makes sense. But those are regular people that there was never any evidence found afterwards that wasn't purely verbal hearsay, diarrhea words out of people trying to make money's mouth, that indicates that these people were anything but some kind of kooky cult of millennialist type Christians who believed in apocalypse soon, who lived off by themselves and had some legal guns, doing their own legal thing, lawfully in Texas, and they were just, okay, so, guys, so that's why we need the armor of God, you see, because there are always people who want to come against you and try to steal your thingsies. Try to harm you, try to take your liberties, try to make you into what's that word again? What's that word? What's that word for somebody who doesn't have political, social, economic, and personal freedom? What is that word again? Oh, is it a slave? A servant? A serf? No, serf has freedom. He just doesn't have his own economic choice, but he is bound. A serf is better than what most of you are today. Truly, if I actually wrote it out for you, what a medieval serf in, like, say, 1150 at the height of it's called the interglacial warm period. At that height, it's amazing. Really, they only worked 1 in 3. Okay, they got 1 in 3 days off. It was a holy day. You just couldn't work on them. It wasn't allowed. They only had to pay tax on 2 of the rest of the days they worked out of every 7. And moreover, you simply couldn't be forced to work on 3 days of every week. So basically, you worked 2 or 3 days a week, and they were fat fed. From what we can tell from the skeletons that are left, they're relatively healthy as any people were until modern medicine. Compare that to where you're at now if you live in a trailer park. And yes, they lived, not as good as you in some ways, but everyone in that period lived lower in hygiene than the rest. Everywhere in the world, pretty much. Do you see how this is, my son? Right. So, at any rate, we have a country that's basically dissolving. I believe it's like this. Bear with me. Underneath Reagan, a serious rot was voted into the government by means of George W. Bush, who was CIA all the way up and down. When he was president, the rot got deeper. Clinton made the rot come home and spread it abroad with the whole world policing mission bullshit. Okay? Oh, yeah. Well, see, but Clinton and Bush again work as a fucking team, don't you understand? Don't you understand this? They're tied to the same court. They're the same men. Ignore the party letters. Those are letters. Look at the continuum of policy since Reagan. continuity of government, you know. Rex 84, go look it up. When Reagan was shot, Bush initiated that program. I know a lot more than most of you pegs, that's for sure. So I don't have time to bandy with you about who's correct about what I'm correct. None of this is conspiracy, it's reality. It happened. Just like, you know, when Alex Jones says that our government has planned to shoot down planes before, yes, L.L. Limnitzer is the man's name that signed off on the fucking documents, you tool. He was Joint Chief of Staff. What can you do? It made it all the way to fucking Kennedy's desk, that plan, before Kennedy said, no goddamn way are we shooting down a plane full of people. Are you insane? And we're not going to fire any rockets at our own people or fire mortars at our own Marine base. Yes. The plan called for mortar and rocket attacks on civilians inside America, as well as assassinations in the Cuban population of South Florida and the East Coast, as well as general unrest amongst the Hispanics and blowing up a plane. Oh, and then there was attacks on Guantanamo. They were going to be staged by our own operatives. This isn't a joke. You see, this was a real thing. So, you know, some things that seem really crazy when you first hear them are just the way it is, you know. So, you know, when I first heard, you know, Zionist occupied government and AIPAC occupied space, you know, from things like Pat Buchanan, Sam Francis, Joseph Sorobon, you know what I mean? These are the conservatives I looked up to, you know what I mean? Even Pat I can respect to some point, even if they miff with the vice president thing, like, oh my God, why did you pick a Negro woman? You idiot. Just should have picked an Anglo-Saxon man, Pat, and you'd have won. And then, of course, but anyway, the point being, though, you know, he was right about this. I mean, there are so many examples of the fact that our government is fucking subverted by Israel First or AIPAC, Zionist people who care about, like, maybe, if we took the Democrats and Republicans and made them two teams in the same, like, gym, you know, one team cares about destroying homes, hearths, families, all that, you know, and the other cares about warfare and corporate tax policy. They both are totally committed to Israel just in their own way, and any disagreement they have about Israel is purely fucking verbal. How do I know this? And here we segue to the news, my man. 300 plus U.S. lawmakers signed letter calling for unconditional security aid to It's a Lie. Over 300 U.S. lawmakers have urged Washington to uphold its commitment to provide full and unconditional security assistance to Israel. Well, let's stop right fucking there. Oh, this is going to be a good long talk, guys. Why? There's a lot of this that's got to be aired. Someone has to have the courage to just say, wait, why are we this servile, this foreign country? We can't defend our own borders in America. Yet we're trying to defend Afghanistan, Iraq, and Israel's borders, and in guaranteeing the Kurds territorial integrity in fucking Syria. Why? Why don't we just back the Iranians and the Syrians and let them clean the fuck up on ISIS and fucking Al-Qaeda? And Israel get buggered. KSA get buggered. They're barbarians, these Sunnis. They're barbarians. Why do we not use the better barbarians, the Iranians, the Hillsmen, the Druze, the Christians, the Syrians, the Alawites, against these fucking Sunni barbarians? Christ only knows. Oh, I know. It's Israel. It's Israel. Israel's the big elephant in that room that we're not supposed to talk about. An elephant in a lot of rooms. You know that church you go to that has a Star of David on the wall? You know that's a synagogue, not a church, right? God will not be forgiving about this. Again, I only have the Christian obligation to warn you once. No. Full and unconditional security assistance. What about you people in America, man? Where Antifa and BLM are burning your fucking cities and sometimes your own districts where you live down around you. Shouldn't you be a higher priority to the United States government in Washington, D.C., to your state government, to the media in the United States, than these things in Israel? Shouldn't you be more important? Does that seem crazy to you? If it does, you're seriously punked. Moreover, full and unconditional security. You know, we have police that can't secure their own houses against mob violence. We have police that can't secure their own police stations. against mob violence. But somehow we're going to defend Israel against Palestinians from the West fucking Bank? Madness. Stay this madness. No, in defense of the U.S.-Israel relationship. You know, I'm reminded of Fleece Johnson when I read that word in relationship to Israel and America. You know, I like you and I want you. The booty warrior. Some 330 members of the House of Representatives. 330 members. Just put your head around that. Roughly 3/4 of the membership. In other words, enough to pass a fucking amendment of the United States Constitution. Do you understand? Signed a letter on Thursday to the chair and ranking member of the House Appropriations Committee. The letter, which are fairly split between Republicans and Democrats, I told you both of them sellouts, comes less than a week after somebody proposed that there be conditions placed on U.S. aid. The who doesn't matter. That's drama. That there be conditions put on the U.S. aid in an effort to seek accountability for Israeli treatment of Palestinian civilians, which is, well, Joe Biden treats the people at the border better than the Israelis treat the Palis. Yeah. You eat more in the concentration camp at the border than you do with that. So any of you people that are like, why are we funding it in Israel? And why is it cool that Israel is helping to supply people like ISIS, Islamic Jihad, and the rest, you know? These non-Shia, Sunni fucking fanatics. Why? And what I'm trying to ask you is this. Do you have any actual evidence that Hezbollah attacked those Marines in fucking Lebanon at all? Hezbollah never actually took official credit for that. Anyone who says they did, you're a liar. Who claims that they took that was Israeli intelligence. Moron. You people have been getting fooled for a long time. I'm different than you. Yeah. At any rate, and you know, holding the Israelis accountable, that's what Nazis do. That's what Hitler wanted to do, was hold people accountable, you know. Only Hitler and people who hate puppies want to hold the Israelis accountable. Note that aid reduction or preconditions on security assistance would be detrimental to Israel's safety. The letter states, okay, whoa. So all of these Democrats, about, let's just say 157 Democrats, okay? Just listen, hear me out. That voted for this, right? They're the same people that wanted to fund the police. Well, wouldn't that be detrimental to your fucking safety right here at home? What more proof do you need that these people are more concerned with Israel than with you? Seriously, though. I mean, this isn't some conspiracy. I'm reading to you an event that actually happened, and people's thoughts on it. Now, Congress, it moreover states, is committed to maintaining Israel's qualitative military edge. So, Israeli citizens should have the best weapons, while you should be disarmed. This is where Democrats voting for this too, the same Democrats that want to disarm you. Ding, 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 ding. Any bells ringing here to you? Okay, now, and listen, Israel is required to keep its ability to defend itself by itself against persistent threats. So, Israel is defending itself by itself when America fully backs Israel to the tune of $3.8 billion a year, as per the U.S. Security Assistance Authorization Act. Wow. Yes, and that's nice. That's really nice. Meanwhile, Jews run around chanting, "Death to the Arabs." Huh. Well, hold on a second. If the Arabs were doing that, wouldn't you say we should kill them? Well, I see. Seems like the media favors one side, not the other. Anyhow, this bipartisan letter, this AIPAC diktat, this UL cause issued by the Jewish Congress, led by Representatives Ted Deutsch and Michelle McCall, was boosted by the American Israeli Public Committee. Boosted by them. You mean absolutely promoted by them? And they went around and said, if you don't vote for this, you won't get any of our money, little puppet. Dance, little bear. Get on the ball and dance. Anyone? An influential lobbying group, a foreign asset that lobbies strictly for the interest of a foreign country to the detriment of Americans' public interest, that advocates pro-Israel, anti-American, anti-white, anti-male, anti-everything good, holy, and just policies. Basically, if ADL supports it, I'm almost automatically against it. Yep. And AIPAC, too, by the way. AIPAC spokesman Marshall Whitman told news website Jewish Insider, see, I told you this wasn't invented, that the letter is a very strong bipartisan statement that full security assistance to Israel, without additional conditions, without any conditions, is in the national security interest of the United States. So the United States can't be secure unless Israel's secure. Why? Is Israel a state of the United States? Do we have a doppelganger? Did we grow something on the side of our testicle? What exactly were we sleeping around the third world and we caught Israel? What is it? Reacting to the letter, former executive director of the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights, I'm not going to try to pronounce that, said 330 members of Congress have told Israel, no matter what you do, you're going to get the moolah. Right. That's correct. This Arab guy, well, I don't agree with this whole phrasing about poor dead kids and whatever they do, we've just agreed we're going to pay for it. So doesn't that make us kind of like the responsible adult that's allowing them to go do that? I mean, doesn't that, oh, I see. Because, you see, if the Jews come up out of the sea down here and said, this land's ours, what I should do if I was a pally is go, oh, okay, take my land. No, I'd say, fuck you, Jew. Now, anyhow, let's see. The majority of social users denounced this letter, by the way. A number of tweets decried, this is Twitter they're talking about, and, of course, denunciations, outrage. Twitter, not really shocked, but a number of tweets decried the U.S. as enabling an apartheid state. Well, it is. There's areas that are strictly Jewish and areas that are strictly not. And there are even roads that can be used by settlers and not by Arabs. Hospitals and the rest. If that isn't segregation, I don't know. I mean, when it was South Africa, that was really a bad thing, So you figure it out, right? With one user saying it was further proof that both Democrats and Republicans lack any moral backbone. Right. They're whores. They just lay on their back and take the cash. You got it. Another user invoked the Leahy Amendments, a cold era set of statutory provisions. Notice how when they're against the law, that's just old icky law, not new good law. See. That prohibit the U.S. government from funding foreign bodies credibly implicated in committing human rights violations. Like keeping people from getting water and locking up their food at threat of bombing them. Right. This would make Congress publicly break its own law. Well, I mean, I guess that kind of does make sense in its way. Taxpayer money, others noted, used in foreign aid of any kind, needed to come with conditions. Right, we should be able to say, absolutely, we're not into paying for it. You can bomb those people. Oh, you want Israel, but I'm not into wanting to pay for that. I'd like to take that $3.8 billion and put it into schools, bridges, and roads here in America. You know what I mean? Pay off some debt, buy some public bonds to fucking try to stabilize the credit situation. Any other thing would be useful rather than just pissing it down a rat hole in Israel. Yep. Now, the idea that we're not putting any type of restrictions on Israel, why, again? Well, guys, we're not going to be allowed to have that conversation openly because the Postal Service is running a covert operations program that monitors Americans' social media posts. Yes, the American Postal Service is now the KGB. It's the KGB Post. The law enforcement arm of the U.S. Postal Service. Why does the U.S. Postal Service have a fucking law enforcement arm? Can anyone answer that? Has been quietly running a program that tracks and collects American social media posts, including about planned protests, lawful or not, remember, according to a document obtained by Yahoo News. So this isn't from a kook source. This is mainline news, I try to do that as much as I can, guys. In the details of the surveillance effort known as iCOP, Internet Covert Operations Program, have not previously been made public. The work involves having analysts trawl through the social media sites and look for what the document describes as inflammatory postings, meaning things that hurt their fifis or disagree with their worldview, and then sharing that information across government agencies, because if there's anything that's most important, it's that the CIA know about your troll posting. Did you just... Right. So basically, the Postal Service is spying on you now. Analysts with the United States Postal Inspection Services, Analysts with the United States Postal Inspection Service, Internet Covert Operations Program, monitored significant activity regarding planned protests occurring internationally and domestically on March 20th, 2021, says the March 16th government bulletin, marked as law enforcement sensitive and distributed through the Department of Homeland Security's fusion centers. Locations and times have been identified for these protests, which are being distributed online across multiple social media platforms to include right-leaning Parler and Telegram accounts. Oh, right-leaning, meaning icky bad people with the wrong opinions. A number of groups were expected to gather in cities around the globe on March 20th as part of a worldwide rally for freedom and democracy. Oh, well, dang, bro. And they were going to protest everything from the lockdown measures to 5G. Oh, that's terrible. Notice how Yahoo's trying to dismiss these people. They're mad because they want their fucking liberties and freedoms back. You bastard communists. Spy on that bitch. Now, Parler users have commented about their intent to use the rallies to engage in violence. No, they haven't. Unless those Parler accounts originated from the U.S. and Postal Service's Inspectorate Office's Internet Covert Research Program. Yeah? Otherwise known as Hasbro. Let's see. Image 3 of the right is a screenshot from Parler, indicating two users discussing the event has an opportunity to engage in a fight and to do serious damage. Notice... What is there any actual real? We don't see the screenshot. It's never provided. You understand? It's not at the news site. So you're like, bullshit. It's invented. And like, oh, I can't make a screenshot. Give me paint in 10 minutes and I can whip one of those up. Okay. No intelligence is available to suggest the legitimacy of these threats, it adds. Oh. So we need a paragraph to dismiss these threats. But these threats are not credibly legitimate. You understand how Two-Face said? I do. I'm the only person here who honestly wants to be chief secret policeman in the new ethno-state, guys. So I do understand just how deceptive and underhanded that is. Okay, now the bulletin includes screenshots of posts from the protests from Facebook, Parler, Telegram, and other social media sites. Individuals mentioned by name include one alleged Proud Boy. Oh, we knew they were bringing those guys up because they're the evil right-wing gang. And several others whose identifying details were included, but whose posts did not appear to contain anything threatening. So they just named random citizens in order to frighten them, even though they don't have any actual threats from these people. Well, that's not KGB-like or anything. I mean, Chinese secret police don't do that. Yes, they do. The Romanians actually used to do that a lot. They would just put random citizens' faces on walls and saying, "This man's a cow thief." It's crazy, do you understand? I mean, that's, but you get it. It's meant to just randomly intimidate people and make people not be able to know who they can trust. Anyway, the iCOP, the Internet Cops, analysts are currently monitoring these social media channels for any potential threats stemming from the scheduled protest and will disseminate intelligence updates as needed. First, they'd have to have intelligence and be able to use it effectively. The government's monitoring of American social media is the subject of ongoing debate. Where? I don't hear anybody of any significance really decrying this, do you? Inside and outside of government, particularly in recent months, following a rise in domestic unrest. Oh, I see. So what they're saying is they're buttering you up for the idea that the government's going to monitor you because people are not happy with the Biden coup. Yeah, if Joe was installed by a coup, he was fortified by a cabal, and you don't need 25,000 soldiers for an inauguration except for an Central African fucking coup. That's how a Central fucking African or a third world tin pot Latin American dictatorship operates. Not a first world country. First world countries don't have 25,000 people to guard the capital from the people so that the so-called loved president who was elected by 81 million people, allegedly, can get his ass put in office. Bullshit! That's a lie. I like me know. Now, any rate, while posts on platforms such as blah blah and hoo have allowed law enforcement to track down and arrest rioters who assaulted the Capitol on January 6th, why is it that never allows them to track down Antifa, who do all this damage all around the country and have since, about, May of last year or so, March of last year? Why is that? Why is that? One set of people are the enemy of the political party in power, and the other set of people are the footmen of the army of the party in power. See, Central African dictatorship. Now, anyhow, there have been concerns about the government surveilling peaceful protesters or those engaged in protected First Amendment activities, like ripping down statues, burning down museums, torching things, ripping garbage cans around, going into people's businesses and fucking ransacking them. When you spy on those ghetto people doing all those things, that's bad. But when you track down these icky people that were at the Capitol, no problems. When contacted by Yahoo News, civil liberties experts expressed alarm at the post office surveillance program. It's a mystery, said University of Chicago law professor Jeffrey Stone, whom President Barack Obama appointed to review the National Security Agency's bulk data collection in the wake of the Edward Snowden leaks. I don't understand why the government would go to the Postal Service for examining the internet for security issues. Yes, you do, because it's out of the way and it had time to grow strong and powerful in the dark, so now it can be used on us like a spider. The Postal Service has had a turbulent year, facing financial insolvency, so they had to go to secret policing and spying on people as a moonlight. A little Stasi on the side. And allegations at its head, Postmaster General Louis DeJoy, who was appointed by President Donald Trump, was slowing down deliveries just as the pandemic vastly increased the number of mail-in ballots for the 2020 election. What? So, because there was some kind of slowdown in deliveries, we need to spy on people through the mail. This is crazy. Why the post office would now move into social media surveillance, which would appear to have little to do with mail deliveries, is unclear. Well, this seems a little bizarre. Based on the very minimal information that's available online, it appears that iCOP is meant to root out misuse of the postal system by online actors, which doesn't seem to encompass what's going on here. It's not at all clear why their mandate would include monitoring of social media that's unrelated to use of the postal system. Yeah. Well, now that this also has been questioned, the legal authority of the Postal Service to monitor social media activity. If the individuals they're monitoring are carrying out planned criminal activity, that should be the purview of the FBI. If they're simply engaging in lawfully protected speech, even if it's odious or objectionable, then monitoring them on that basis raises serious First Amendment concerns. Yeah, it should. In a free country, it would. If we weren't in an African third world dictatorship, it would. The U.S. Postal Inspection Service did not respond to specific questions about iCOP, but provided a general statement. The U.S. Postal Service is the U.S. Postal Inspection Service is the primary law enforcement, crime prevention, and security arm of the Postal Service. As such, the Postal Inspection Service, I'm just going to call it that, has federal law enforcement officers, postal inspectors, who enforce approximately 200 federal laws to achieve the agency's mission. Protect the U.S. Postal Service and its employees, infrastructure, and customers. Enforce the laws that defend the nation's mail system from illegal or dangerous use and ensure public trust in the mail. So, if there's a post box anywhere where there's going to be a protest, these guys are going to claim the authority to spy on you. The Internet Covert Operations Program is a function within the U.S. Postal Inspectorate Service, which assesses threats to Postal Service employees, its infrastructure, boxes, by monitoring publicly available open source information. Additionally, the inspection service collaborates with federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies to proactively identify and assess potential threats to the Postal Service, its employees and customers, and its overall mail processing and transportation network. In order to preserve national operational effectiveness, the U.S. Postal Inspection Service does not discuss its protocols, investigation methods, or tools, says the tool. Yeah. The Postal Service isn't the only part of the government expanding its monitoring of social media. In a background call with reporters last month, DHS officials spoke about the government's involvement in monitoring social media for domestic terrorism threats. Remember how they used to treat Al-Qaeda and ISIS and the Taliban? Well, that's how they're going to treat you now, guy. Yep. We know that this threat is fueled mainly by false narratives, conspiracy theories, and extremist rhetoric, meaning wrongthink. We know that wrongthink makes people think things that the government doesn't want them to think, said this official. And that is connected to people being able to go online and speak their mind. Anyway, we know that this threat is fueled mainly by false narratives, this man says, as if anything the government says is true. Conspiracy theories. There's no bigger conspiracy than the theory that the government ain't bullshitting you. And extremist rhetoric. There's nothing more extreme than burning someone's business down while you force them to go out of business wearing a mask and pretending that they're going to die of a fucking common cold. Read through social media and other online platforms. Guys, if you forced me to, I'd go right out here with a bullhorn and broadcast I'll go out and talk to myself out loud to the point where people can hear me. I'm crazy. So, Now, and that's why we're kicking off engagement directly with social media companies. Meaning there are now online snitches hired by the United States government to keep you from reading, thinking, and saying the things that they don't want you to read, think, or say. Read KGB, kids. Can we spell it? People's Commissariat for Security. KGB. DHS, which is our KGB, I guess now, is coordinating with civil rights and civil liberties colleges. As well as our private colleges. Those bastions of Marxist, Leninist thinking. To ensure that everything we're doing is being done responsibly and in line with civil rights and civil liberties and individual privacy. Meaning, leftists over at these colleges are determining how you're going to be treated. Do you know anything about the Students for a Democratic Society? Go look it up. Students for a Democratic Society. Anyhow, the University of Chicago professor questioned why the post office would be tasked with something like identifying violent protests 2 months after the January 6th riot. I'm just going to call it a protest, which would appear to have little or nothing to do with the post office role in delivering mail. I just don't think the post office has the degree of sophistication that you'd want if you were dealing with national security threats of this sort. No, it does seem kind of wonka clown world, doesn't it? That part is puzzling. There are so many other federal agencies that could do this. I don't understand why the post office would be doing it. There is no need for the post office to do it. They've got FBI, Homeland Security, CIA, NSA, DIA, National Reconnaissance Office, and so on. So I don't know why the post office is doing this. Again, so it could grow in the dark and get big. And the problem of surplus white men. Well, they're white. Dispossessed white men have haunted Western politics for generations, guys. The answer isn't to jettison identity politics. It's to create truly meaningful new opportunities, says John Feller. This was originally in foreign policy. Foreign policy in Focus is part of the Foreign Affairs magazines, which I believe are put out by the Council for Foreign Affairs. Or Council on Foreign Relations. You know the place where Joe said, you fire the guy or you don't get the $1 billion, that room? Those guys. Okay. Who lies at the intersection of guns, right-wing fanaticism, pandemic, and climate change denialism? Oh, we're denying a pandemic. You have to affirm a pandemic, otherwise you'll harm people. If the fucking pandemic was the Black Death, my affirmation or denial would be absolutely affirmo, nego, doesn't matter. You understand what I mean? Right. Anyhow, and if the climate always is changing, it always will be, because we have this thing known as a fluctuating climate, because anyhow, there's a lot of variables to creation, perhaps, that you're like too small to understand. Okay, who ensures that racism continues to course through the lifeblood of the country? Race is real, and what you commie goofbag lowlife traitors call racism is just the natural good in-group preference of whites for other whites. Racism, as such, loyalty to your own kind, is good, just, right, and moral. Okay. Who stands in the way of gender equality? There is no such equality. Equality itself is a fucking false fabrication, and gender, as such, doesn't exist. There's biological sex, male, penis, female, vagina. Simple, really. Who supports foreign wars in the military-industrial complex? Both parties, the Jews and the big money backers from China that are using us as a workhorse. Who is getting hard by the erosion of manufacturing base in the heartland? Middle-class white men who were jettisoned during the 1990s for the Clintonista female empowerment bullshit agenda that's led to this clusterfuck. I guess just a regular evil. Oh, and it's white men. White men's the answer to all these questions. It's the white man. White men are twice as likely as white men, as non-white men and white women to own guns. Did you know that, guys? Although white women espouse racist right-wing views as much or even more than white men, white women are the real racist and shit, guys. It is the latter that overwhelmingly show up to vote, to gather with guns on the street. When the fuck was the last time white men really gathered on the guns on the street, except for to defend businesses from fucking wild-eyed looters like, the Kenosha Kid, man. Kyle's a fucking stand-up dude. Kyle's a king, dude. Kyle's a champ. Simple as that, bro. And intimidate non-whites in person and on social media. Well, that could be because women are really kind of tiny and they're not usually really intimidating. I mean, I'm just going to say that. It's sort of the way it goes. That's part of mammalian nature and moreover the primate. Anyhow, it's just the way humans are, right? Anyway, conservative white men have been at the forefront of climate denialism. As if we all don't know about the Younger Dryas event, the cooling, the warming, the cooling, the warming. Are we stupid? Is this, these people, do they really think we're this dumb? Okay. Now, according to a fascinating sociological Read Commie study from 2011, it's not just Donald Trump who hates to wear face masks during a pandemic, but men more generally. I wish more of these cucked pussies at these stores knew that, because I'm one of the few men who just won't wear that fucking thing just to go buy some eggs. I don't believe in your fucking pandemic. Your pandemic is fucking goddamn puffed up bullshit. No, a significant gender gap exists on the use of force, with women considerably less likely to support military intervention. Really? In other news, more births will be had today out of women than men. These people are insane, Take the example of, some random dude who hurt his fucking wife this week. He had some guns. He was talking about suicide. And so the rest of you have to be kind of, you're just icky white male, violent, right-wing fanatics that have anxieties over economic security. Oh, and you have residual white privilege, because some random dude that worked for Donald Trump got arrested. Did you know that? This is fascinating logic, isn't it? If this random dude were African American, an encounter with the police like that might not have ended peacefully. Or it might have, because, you want me to let you know the secret? More white people died from police than blacks. Almost 3 times as many whites died from police as blacks. And of the whites that died, they're just as brutally, if not more brutally killed. Oh, shit. And more often than not, it's not just white police involved. It's black and other colored police that kill whites. Did you know that? Fucking fascinating dynamic, huh? But, of course, he's not talking about all white men. No, you skinny jean guys, you're accepted. Plenty of white women have jumped on the alt-right bandwagon. Oh, yeah, manly men, pussy fuckers, manly men, pussy fuckers, It's like, do you want to be with fucking Augustus Caesar, or do you want to be with some pussy fucking... Yes! Okay! Yes! Oh, GOP! Holy GOP! Oh, Zion! Fuck that. Let's be real. Okay, bro? And American conservatives can point to a few people like... who? that can it point to a few people to allege that their ideology is colorblind? Bruh. That colorblindness thing is the most tiresome. It's like, colorblindness is a fucking condition, not a virtue, baby. It's a condition. I can't see red. I don't see green. You see, it's a condition, baby. Not a motherfucking, not a virtue, baby. You can't see red, how can you drive if you can't see them, Bo? Get the fuck away, get away from the wheel. You're a danger. Anyhow, but white men who were all revved up with no place to go posed the greatest challenge to American democracy. Remember the students for Democratic Society I was talking about above? They wanted to liquidate about half the white population. So, you're the biggest threat to American democracy. They are the core of icky right-wing support. They're showing up on the streets in militia formations and with Proud Boy banners. As opposed to what? Antifa and BLM that are just showing up and sacking out Target and Mikey? Footlogger? The manosphere of online anti-feminism is the gateway drug to get to the right-wing activist real shit. You start mainlining when you get to the alt-right, bro. It's funny, dude. Anyhow, who worry about being replaced by minorities and immigrants. You mean like replacement migration? There is a replacement migration website over at the UN. Just put in replacement migration in quotes, UN. You'll find their website. Yeah. Don't you be worried about it, though, even though it exists. And white men have been struggling with a long period of enormous economic dislocation that has turned them into a surplus labor force. You're just useless lumps of flesh, guys. Just turds left over. You know, down in San Francisco, all that junk on the street, that's how they think of you, white guy. That's exactly how low they think of you. It's just surplus leftover labor. You like donkeys, that's when they invented engines. Just worthless. Got to go. Now, these white men, they'll remain a problem. After all, unlike liberals who threaten to decamp to New Zealand, disgruntled Trump bros are not going to just up and leave the United States. Neither were the liberals were going to go to New Zealand. Who the fuck would want to go to Jacinda's prison island? Who the fuck wants to go to Jacinda's prison island? Hey? Yeah, that's precisely how countries long dealt with the problem of surplus white men. Go west, surplus white man. Wow. They just wanted to get rid of you, see? In the bad old days, countries handled surplus men by sending them off to populate far-off lands or just go die. The misfits of the incipient British Empire sailed off to settle the land that hugged the eastern seaboard of North America. And then later, you people got driven out. Yet, for its first 100 years of existence, the United States had a convenient safety valve for such male restlessness, the western frontier. Oh, yeah. In the Midwest, the Southwest, and the Far West, the industrious built family farms, the greedy sought gold, and the opportunists robbed banks. Along the way, they did what white men often did in those days, kicked the locals off the land and killed them when they refused to leave. By which they mean the natives. But remember, when you white guys get kicked off the land and refuse to leave, then you can be killed because they've made up this narrative that you're the bad guys of. And because they made up a narrative where you're the bad guys. You're the bad guys. Now, when the frontier closed at the end of the 19th century, white men enlisted to expand a new American empire in the Spanish-American War, and through expeditionary interventions in Latin America were conscripted, is more correct. World War I and the flu epidemic of 1918 solved the problem of surplus with a ruthless cull of more than 100,000 men. You see? They want you dead. Period. You only can be solved by being dead, white guy. Later, World War II removed 4 times as many. And notice the gleeful. Since that time, America has continued to go to war. But the U.S. government also made an effort to deal with its white male population by creating well-paid jobs in an expanding manufacturing sector and offering returning soldiers a leg up through programs like the GI Bill. The golden age of American economic growth, however, was primarily a golden age for the white American male. And that makes it evil, you know. White women, if they broke with tradition to enter the workforce, earned considerably less. Well, that's because they are worth less. Men make more and create more. Period. And black Americans, especially prior to the successes of the civil rights movement, what's success about burning down Watts? Were regulated to second-class citizenship. Their nigger ass should be lucky they're here with their superiors. In 1960, a mere 2% of women and black men worked in high-wage jobs like engineering and law. Good. Notice 1960 was better than it is now in every fucking measurable way. Virtually all doctors in the United States were white men. Hallelujah. Racism and sexism permeated immediate post-war government programs. Praise be to God. You can't make me cuck. In the 1960s, as a result of powerful social movements, by which they mean assassinations, blackmail, subversion, women and minorities began to rise professionally. You mean they began to destroy society with their Marxist fucking insanity? They continued to make gains in the ensuing decades. Oh, really? So these women living alone with 50 cats now, that's a gain from the woman who had 6 kids in 1960? You betcha, Chief. But the U.S. economy as a whole hit a brick wall in the early 70s. You mean to say the plug was pulled and the rest of us got left bankrupt and high and dry? Right. Real wages peaked in 1973, so the year I lived was the best it ever. The year I was born was the best it ever was to be a working fucker in America, according to these same people who want you dead, by the way. Yeah. Imports began to appear more frequently on supermarket shelves and in car showrooms. That means our manufacturing base went. Why? Oh, that's the year that we opened up China, you see. You didn't know that? China was opened in the 70s and late 60s, bro. Okay. Unions began to shed members in the 70s and 80s. I mean real unions, not the shit unions, the old workers' unions. And by the 1990s, the manufacturing jobs began to shift overseas. First with the massive expansion of the program in Mexico after the passage of NAFTA, and then to low-income locations in Asia, read China and Vietnam. Between 2000 and 2014, the United States lost 5 million high-paying manufacturing jobs. So that's 5 million households. Plus, remember, any manufacturing job is going to have associated other sort of secondary jobs, around 2 to 3 at the usual estimate. These economic transformations left behind many blue-collar workers. Screw you, right? They could still get jobs, but these jobs couldn't pay as well as the manufacturing positions. In response, this proletariat didn't organize against the ruling capital class. No. Increasingly, these workers listened to sexist, racist, and xenophobic slogans that blame women, minorities, and immigrants for taking away their jobs. Really, it should be more like they should blame Jews, then women, then minorities, then immigrants. Yeah, that'd be more correct. The financial crisis of 2008 and 2009 swelled the ranks of the new right with many angry white men from the middle class as well. You mean it broke a lot of people financially? Yes. Yeah. And this is not purely an American problem. Remember, white people everywhere are icky. So angry white men have been a fixture in European right-wing politics in Australia. Machoism has long played a role in Latin America. Yeah. And despite the rise of feminism across the continent, continues to influence electoral outcomes from Colombia to Brazil. Even China, where men can get jobs, but not necessarily wives, has to deal with the problem of surplus men, given the population's preference for male babies. India, too, faces an excess of 37 million men. So you see, men are really the problem, but white men are the real problem. Because America has a particularly toxic version of this problem because of the country's endemic racism, polarized politics, and Rust Belt economics. You see, you angry white evil people, you want too much money. So you gotta be. You're the people who contributed to the Reagan Revolution, the Gingrich backlash. Gingrich was a pussy. And the rise of the Tea Party. So see, they're not talking about neo-Nazis like me. They're talking about regular, normal people like you who are like, I don't see color, I don't see race. They see your race, asshole. Now, the future of surplus white men. Going ahead. Donald Trump would seem to have been an unlikely spokesperson for white workers left behind by the deindustrialization of the United States. He wasn't a particularly good one, but he was one. And he did wake up, he woke up a sleeping giant that's not going to readily just go back into its bunk. With his business empire, Trump has invested overseas in more than 30 countries. Let's see. Trump knows that playing to Wall Street is not a winning political strategy. Really? In what way didn't he play to Wall Street? He literally gave them every single thing they wanted, Now, the white mob still supports Trump for his efforts at closing borders, suppressing minority votes. Again, illegals that are here shouldn't be voting. Dead people should not be voting. And the so-called other minorities, you're full of shit. And celebrating the racist history of the United States, meaning celebrating the fact that America was founded by white, English-speaking Anglo-Saxons. Yep. And he still supports the white mob this week, refusing to denounce white supremacy. Oh, Trump wouldn't denounce white supremacy. But the president, then, this is old, this little reading here, but it isn't. It's exactly what they think of you. The problem with surplus white men, again, ain't going to be going away. The Democrats, entranced by third ways and post-industrial economics, have ignored white male workers at their electoral peril. Joe Biden has courted this vote by appealing to his working-class roots in Scranton. Who believed that crap? Okay, but the fact is that, okay, so the answer is to create good-paying jobs for all through green new policies. Oh, isn't that going to work, guys? Because remember, guys, if you get a brand new job, white guy, you'll totally forget that they've been calling you a white guy, a Nazi, and a racist. Because remember, as it says here, somebody with a good paying job has no time to worry about whether or not they have to be proud. Wow, man. Anyhow, 10 numbers that explain the roots of white male rage. Amid all the largely disconnected discussions about angry white males, stagnant wages and inequality, fatherless families, and polarized politics, several striking linkages among these issues have gone largely unnoticed. Tens of millions of white men have been expelled or checked out from mainstream American life, a reality with profound consequences for our economy, our children and families, our civic life, and our politics. At least 20% of the nation's 90 million white men have been pushed to the sidelines, either retreating or storming out of the mainstream of American life, depending on how you'd like to look at it. They are not the men you see at work who play with their children, go out with their wives or partners, are involved in their communities, and earn a living to save for their children's education and own retirement. What they do doesn't register in either the gross domestic product or in the glimmer of a child's eye. Many of them are mad as hell. They have good reason to be mad, although their venom is too often turned at various scapegoats. And anyhow, let's see. Fewer than 7 out of 10 American men work. In the 1950s, 9 out of 10 worked. Remember those jobs that were needed? Since the 1970s, inflation-adjusted incomes for the bottom 80% of men have fallen, with the most dramatic declines occurring among the bottom 40%, most of whom have less than a college education. Meaning, you got to be college educated, otherwise you need to starve. That's the exact theory in this country, though. Why people who cut hair need a college education? Today, just half of men are husbands. In 1960, 3/4 of men were married. Just 2 out of 3 children live with their fathers. Where John F. Kennedy was elected president, 9 out of 10 children live with their fathers. Today, 43% of 18 to 35-year-old American men live with their parents, as compared in 1960 with about 28%. There are 36% more women in college than men, whereas in 1970, there were about 35% more men in college than women. In 2013, mortality rates among less educated, middle-class white men and women were about 20% higher than they were in 1998. Men appear to be 50% less likely to trust government than women. Well, why would they? Government screws them and gives them almost nothing back unless they're completely fucking destitute in the ditch. Whereas women can just get anything from government by going, I need stuff. It's just about it, too. Especially if they divorce their husband. In recent years, there has been a roughly 20-point gender voting gap, with white men being much more likely not only to vote for Republicans, but to express disillusionment and anger towards government. Let's see. Membership in civic groups, including primarily male service organizations, have fallen by between 1/3 to 2/3 since the 1960s. A lot has gone wrong for a lot of white men, a demographic that once signaled privilege and high expectations. Yes, guys. So you're privileged and expect stuff, but they admit at the same time. You see, the mind of the Marxists is a mysterious thing, my sons. They are truly a mysterious people. Now, look at this. You say, my son, how much worse could it get? Well, how MasterCard's rules against child pornographers could be used to ban conservatives from bankings. Leftist activists have already begun pushing MasterCard, Visa, and others to expand their ban beyond illegal activities with the eventual goal of demonetizing opposing political views. Last week, MasterCard Incorporated announced new rules for banks processing credit card payments to pornography websites designed to combat child pornography and sex trafficking, which in itself is good, don't get me wrong. Unfortunately, for a country whose corporate overlords refuse or are unable to distinguish between intrinsic evil and prudential policy judgments, this promising development will also likely serve as a beta test to further attack conservative groups, which are the last people who would support that, but it's true though, isn't it? In December, MasterCard and Visa banned the use of their credit cards on the Pornhub website after the New York Times ran a column by Nicholas Kristof detailing the availability of child abuse and rape videos on that site. MasterCard explained its decision by confirming that Pornhub, a subsidiary of MindGeek, had violated the company's standards by providing unlawful content. Visa quickly followed suit, announcing that it too had instructed the financial institutions who serve MindGeek to suspend processing of payments through the Visa network, which, again, those are good. Fuck Pornhub, right? On April 14th, 2021, MasterCard Senior Vice President John Verdeschi announced new standards applicable to all merchants providing porn and their banks. Under the new policy, all banks that connect merchants to the MasterCard network will need to certify that the purveyor of pornography has effective controls in place to monitor, block, and where necessary, take down all illegal content. With a process that addresses any illegal or non-consensual content within 7 business days. Additionally, the pornography merchants must provide documented age and identification verification for all people depicted and those uploading the content, and a content review process prior to publication. Verdici explained MasterCard's new requirements built on years of work with Interpol and the National and International Centers for Missing and Exploited Children, and more recently formed relationships with the Internet Watch Foundation and We Protect Global Alliance, organizations fighting the sexual exploitation of children. Again, which things I commend, by the way. But this affects more than child porn. While the standards MasterCard announced this week are new in unveiling the rules, Verdici stressed that long ago, MasterCard established the rules and standards that govern the use of our payment network. Chief among these is that we do not and will not permit merchants to engage in unlawful activity on our network. MasterCard's policy thus extends beyond merchants peddling illegal pornography. For instance, working with the International Anti-Counterfeiting Coalition and the Center for Safe Internet Pharmacies, MasterCard responds quickly to sales of counterfeit goods and the sale of illegal pharmaceuticals. According to academic research, disrupting the sale of illegal goods through the payment networks and their partner banks appears more effective than legal action. That same research detailed the policies and procedures that provide MasterCard the ability to punish banks severely, merchants That same research detailed the policies and procedures that allow MasterCard the ability to punish banks severely for serving merchants who illegally sell counterfeit goods or pharmaceuticals, which cause banks to refuse to do business with high-risk merchants or to adopt such stringent policies that there are practically zero approval rates. Leftists will treat conservatives just like pornographers is the upshot of all this, and yes. When applied to illegal activities, and especially child pornography, MasterCard's policy promotes the common good. But leftist activists have already been pushing MasterCard, Visa, and the others to expand their ban beyond illegal activities. In 2019, the group Some of Us, a partner organization to George Soros' Open Society Foundations, forced MasterCard to hold a shareholder vote on Proposal 5, presented as a human rights proposal. Resolved, shareholders of MasterCard Incorporated request that the board direct the Nominating and Corporate Governance Committee create a standing committee to oversee the company's response to domestic and international developments in human rights that affect MasterCard's business. MasterCard has attempted to avoid a shareholder vote on establishing a human rights committee by arguing Proposal 5 concerned ordinary business operations, and as such, under Securities and Exchange Commission regulations, was not subject to a shareholder vote. In a letter seeking an advisory opinion from the SEC on the need to present Proposal 5 to shareholders, MasterCard argued the proposal was primarily focused on the use of the company's products and services by groups with the goals that the proponent views, some of us views, to be controversial or problematic. So because Proposal 5's key objective is to dictate the manner in which the company decides which merchants should be prohibited from using its payment processing system, it concerned ordinary business operations. Yet, the SEC rejected MasterCard's position. So, in its 2019 proxy materials, MasterCard presented Prop 5 to shareholders for a vote, along with some of us' statement in support of the proposal. That supporting statement and its reliance on hate groups as defined by the Color of Change at its webpage, bloodmoney.org, exposes left-leaning activists' goal of enlisting corporate America in their political fight against the right. Leftists define being conservative as hateful. MasterCard's exposure to conflict in human rights risk is significant. Some of us supporting statement begins, noting the company operates in over 210 countries and territories, some of which have a significant risk of human rights violations. The supporting statement continues. Companies can face risks related to human rights even when they only perform support functions. Internet infrastructure companies like web host GoDaddy, social media platform Facebook, and payments firm PayPal have come under pressure for doing business or providing a forum for neo-Nazis and other hate groups. MasterCard has received negative publicity for processing of payments of white supremacist groups. According to the website bloodmoney.org, MasterCard continues to process payments for organizations such as American Border Patrol, League of the South, Proud Boys, and Stormfront. Well, that means MasterCard better shut it down, huh? While some of us framed its concern as MasterCard's processing of payments for neo-Nazis and white supremacist groups, some of us' reliance on bloodmoney.org's list of hate groups gives away the game. Bloodmoney.org is a website ran by the far-left organization Color of Change, an online organization created by Obama administration former Green Job czar Van Jones and the former director of grassroots mobilization for MoveOn.org, James Rucker. On its webpage, Color of Change equates right-wing politics with white nationalism and stresses it works to dismantle right-wing infrastructure and support. One-party state, here we come. One-party state, on the way. Anyhow, the website states further that the goal is to push people to tell payment networks such as MasterCard, American Express, PayPal, Visa, Apple Pay, and Discover to ban hate groups from receiving funds. The list of hate groups, however, includes mainstream conservative organizations such as the American College of Pediatricians, Family Research Council, and the Center for Security Policy. MasterCard get Congress to make the right illegal. MasterCard opposed some of us' proposal, arguing other units of the business already focus on illegal activities, then added, "We operate our network on the principle that consumers should be able to make all lawful purchases, and all franchise rules ensure compliance with the laws pertaining to the acceptable use of our payment processing services by merchants, acquirers, and issuers. We regularly monitor activities involving our products and services for any illegal use. When we process payment transactions, we do not have visibility into goods that are purchased or the use of those goods. When we are made aware of illegal activities or rules violations, we work closely with law enforcement and acquirers to shut down those activities." During the annual meeting, MasterCard's chairman of the board, Rick Haythornwaite, elaborated further. "There are many views out there, and we have to sit down as a company and ask ourselves, first of all, is there any illegal activity taking place Is there any legal transaction? And if there is, we turn it down. We talk to law enforcement. We talk to acquiring banks and shut it down. And shut it down. And if it's lawful, we need to respect that transaction. If it is something that is sort of against the tide of society, if it's the society to raise up and change the law. Oh. MasterCard's focus on the illegality of the transaction mirrors the approach the company took following the murder of Heather Heyer by a white supremacist in Charlottesville, Virginia. You mean when Heather Heyer committed fucking suicide by trying to unlawfully impede a man's travel on the street? Again, James Field did nothing wrong. James Fields is a political prisoner. Heather Heyer was a violent insurrectionist anarchist, and the bitch met her death rightfully, good, justly, and that's it. Fuck her. Screw her goddamn fat, disgusting mother. Screw her fat, disgusting land whale self. Boom! Off that bumper was one of the best moments in history. Now what? Screw you. Now, interesting. Now, the press added, however, our cards may be still accepted at some sites that people find offensive. Well, you see, notice, some random crazy anarchist impedes a man's travel and gets herself killed. And now you should be kicked off of payment networks because of, well, icky right-wing politics. Now, some of us as human rights nonsense failed to pass, but you understand where this goes to, right? Right. The fact is this, guys. Let's see. Banks are already signaling that they're woke. That's where it goes. MasterCard's new rules that force banks to police pornography outlets provides a template for demonetizing conservative groups and really anyone they don't like. MasterCard and its competitors need not even alter their professed company policies of limiting bans to illegal activities, requiring banks to institute policies to ensure merchant organizations have effective controls to monitor, block, and where necessary, take down threatening content threatening to who? Or conduct that would allegedly incite violence. What does that even mean? Could be enough to dissuade banks from issuing or servicing conservative organizations. Because remember, to leftists, organizing against leftism is itself violence. When they kill you, it's not violence. That's progress and protest and peace. In response to these inquiries, MasterCard Communications Senior Vice President Seth Eisen, imagine this, was unclear about whether alleged threats of violence or illegal activity are the company's threshold for denying service. We do not and will not permit merchants to engage in unlawful activity. Right. Let's see. And of course, we've seen many America's largest companies sprint to virtue signal, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Goldman Sachs, MasterCard, Discover Financial Services, this, that, the other. All of them have signed up with Antifa and BLM, but they're not going to be against conservatives ever? Come on, dude. This country's fast descending, as we all know, into a Dantean hell. Yeah, right on the back of the poor whites, bro. The circles of hell into which we've been signed, sealed, and delivered are mass immigration, diversity, multiculturalism, and zealous institutionalized anti-whiteness, with its attendants decivilization and inversion of long-held societal morals and mores. I don't think I could have said that any better. The guiding ghost of Virgil is nowhere to be found. Virgil done split, bro. He said no. To ostensibly shepherd us out of hell, however, assorted serpents have slithered forth. Beware, all the more so when they speak to you from bastions of the establishment. Newsweek is one. As J.D. Vance does in True Compassion, requires secure borders and stopping illegal immigration. His is the typically conciliatory conservative argument we come to expect from the gilded elite. Aren't we all the same? Can't we all just get along? Regarding America's promiscuous immigration policy under Republicans and Democrats alike, Vance is the best-selling author of Hillbilly Elegy, a memoir of a family and culture in crisis, which is a cultural compliment, namely unflattering account, which is a culturally compliant, namely unflattering account of poor white America. Yeah, I mean, Hillbilly Elegy. I wonder if it's a book flattering people. You know? Provided your thesis allows for cozy convergence of agreeable storylines, you are well positioned to peddle a national bestseller to the approving left, libertarian, neoconservative, and pseudo-conservative smart set. Yes, Vance is a sellout. Not that they were asked for their take, but the archetypical folks depicted in Hillbilly Elegy contend justifiably that Vance is not an authentic hillbilly or an example of the working class. You know, they never are, right? Cassie Chambers Armstrong's Aunt Ruth, for example. Aunt Ruth doesn't think much of Vance's endeavor. Well, Aunt Ruth. Okay. Hell, why not? Get her in there. Her niece is an Appalachian and author of a redeeming tale, Hill Women, Finding Family and a Way Forward in the Appalachian Mountains. Sounds a lot better, doesn't it? Hillbilly Elegy's portrayal of Appalachia, explains Armstrong, is designed to elevate Vance above the community from which he came. It seeks to tell his story in a way that aligns with the simplistic rags to riches narrative. Think critically about how that narrative influences the way we are taught to think about poverty, progress, and identity. Armstrong is perceptively correct. It's cringeworthy, Uriah Heep slimy. But Vance all but advertises that the Indian American Brahmin he wed has helped rid him of his hillbilly ways. So he's even, Vance is a race trader. The race trader's going to tell us all about how poor whites ain't really having no problems. To that end, he tells of a mild exchange with his wife. Don't make excuses for weakness. I didn't get here by making excuses for failure, he hollers at her. Really? This guy seems a little crazy. These unremarkable muted words Vance had with his wife. We had a little problem there. Technical difficulties, my friend. Card table done gave out. Anyhow, let's see here. That was wife Usha Chilorukki Curry. I'm just going to call her Usha Curry. He frames self-serving as the baggage of his tumultuous upbringing. Okay, so Vance slimes his hillbilly relatives. He even names names. Credits and kudos go to the Chilcaries, his wives, for the Curries, for teaching him what a functional family looked like. Yeah, he had to go to street shitters to learn about reality. Yeah, just imagine that. All right, well, guys, are ready to go? Hello, folks. How y'all doing today? Well, tonight, actually, but you know. So, John Hopkins, psychiatrist, transgender is a mental disorder, sex change biologically impossible. Dr. Paul R. McHugh, the former psychiatrist-in-chief for Johns Hopkins Hospital and its current Distinguished Service Professor of Psychiatry, said that transgenderism is a mental disorder that merits treatment, that sex change is biologically impossible, and that people who promote sexual reassignment surgery are collaborating with and promoting a mental disorder. Yes, transgenderism is a mental disorder. Dr. McHugh, the author of 6 books and at least 125 peer-reviewed medical articles, made his remarks, in a recent commentary in the Wall Street Journal, where he explained that transgender surgery is not the solution for people who suffer a disorder of assumption, the notion that their maleness or femaleness is different than what nature assigned to them biologically. He also reported on a new study showing that the suicide rate among transgender people who had reassignment surgery is 20 times higher than the suicide rate among non-transgender people. Dr. McHugh further noted that studies from Vanderbilt University and London's Portman Clinic of children who had expressed transgender feelings, but for whom over time 70 to 80% spontaneously lost those feelings. While the administration, Hollywood, and major media such as Time magazine promote transgenderism as normal, Dr. Mayhew said these policymakers and the media are doing no favors either to the public or the transgendered by treating their confusions as a right in need of defending rather than a mental disorder that deserves understanding, treatment, and prevention. This intensely felt sense of being transgendered constitutes a mental disorder in two respects. The first is the idea of sex misalignment. It's just simply mistaken. It does not correspond with physical reality. The second is that it can lead to grim psychological outcomes. The transgendered person's disorder, said Dr. McHugh, is in the person's assumption that they are different than the physical reality of their body, their maleness or femaleness, as assigned by nature. It is a disorder similar to a dangerously thin person suffering anorexia who looks in the mirror and thinks they are overweight. This assumption that one's gender is only in the mind regardless of anatomical reality has led some transgendered people to push for social acceptance and affirmation of their own subjective, personal truth, said Dr. McHugh. As a result, some states, California, New Jersey, and Massachusetts, have passed laws barring psychiatrists, even with parental permission, from striving to restore natural gender feelings to a transgender minor. In other words, barring doctors from treating people, yeah? The pro-transgender advocates do not want to know that studies show between 70 and 80% of children who express these feelings spontaneously lose those feelings. Also, for those who had sexual reassignment surgery, most said they were satisfied with the operation, but their subsequent psychosocial adjustments were no better than those who didn't have the surgery. And so at Hopkins, we stopped doing sex reassignment surgery since producing a satisfied but still troubled patient seemed an inadequate reason for surgically amputating normal organs. Right. The former Johns Hopkins chief of psychiatry also warned against enabling or encouraging certain subgroups of the transgendered, such as young people. Acceptable suggestion from Everything is Normal, Sex Education in the Schools, diversity counselors who, like cult leaders, may encourage these young people to distance themselves from their families and offer advice on rebutting arguments against having transgender surgery. Dr. McHugh also reported that there are misguided doctors who are working with very young children who seem to imitate the opposite sex will administer puberty-delaying hormones to render later sex change surgeries less onerous, even though the drugs stunt the children's growth and risk causing sterility. Such action comes close to child abuse, said the doctor, given that close to 80% of these kids will abandon their confusion and grow naturally into adult life if untreated. So 4 out of 5 of these people, if just left alone, and would just be normal again. It is a demonic evil cult. Sex change is biologically impossible, said McHugh. People who undergo sex reassignment surgery do not change from men to women or vice versa. Rather, they become feminized men or masculinized women. Claiming that this is a civil rights matter and encouraging surgical intervention is in reality to collaborate with and promote a mental disorder. Okay? All right. So, let's see. One sec. Speaking of mental disorder, Washington State Department of Health allows vaccination sites to deny vaccines to white people to address inequalities. That's right. If you're white, back in line. Whites are not welcome, says at least one vaccination site in Washington State. Oh, ain't we all equal? Some animals is more equal than others on this farm, guys. The Washington Department of Health spokeswoman, Kristen Mackey, said people of color are being prioritized to address inequalities. Prioritization is designed to address current inequalities and barriers to accessing vaccines. Is that another one of those ID problems, baby? And get the people who are at highest risk vaccinated first, while federal vaccine supply remains limited. So, basically, blacks is more important than whites, huh? The African American Reach and Teach Health Ministry is one of the vaccine providers in Washington State, and they are forcing people who sign up for an appointment online to identify their race. I wonder if a white American reach and teach health ministry would be acceptable. No is the answer. Absolutely no. White people will be denied an appointment and automatically put on a standby list. Part of the reason we ask that is because we are funding that we receive. ARTH consultant Tawanda Hill told the Jason Ranch show on KTTH. They want to know, we have funding because we are able to reach people of color. Federal funding, state funding, county funding. So federal, state, and county funding is exclusively for people of color. They want to know who we are serving. If you're a person of color, you can move forward and schedule a vaccine appointment if there's an opening. But if you're white, you are automatically placed on a standby list. This bars you from continuing the process. ART says they will contact the white person if there is an opening. The first list, according to Hill, is a waiting list for people of color. Should a vaccine appointment open up, if the wait list is emptied and vaccine availabilities eventually open up, then and only then will a white person on the standby list be contacted. Not that I believe in these vaccines, but whoa! This policy effectively bars white people from accessing taxpayer-funded medicine set up through the state. Hill argues their system isn't truly exclusionary. Tawanda says no. A small percentage of white people on the standby list make it through. There's some, right? Shoulders the notes for people who lie about race won't be turned away. Oh. I wonder, you think I could go in there and claim I was black? Hill could not specify which government agency ARTH received its funding from for this project. Public Health, Seattle and King County tells the Jason Ranch show they do not have a contract with ARTH. Lovely. So, guys, we keep hearing about this insurrection. BLM mob storms Oklahoma State Capitol, forces GOP representatives into lockdown. Well, that's not quite the narrative you're supposed to think, is it? Political insurrections only seem to make screaming headlines in the fake news. The one time in the decade it involves white Republican Trump-type peoples, yeah. Black Lives Matter protesters, on the other hand, stormed the Oklahoma Capitol on Thursday and forced Republican representatives into lockdown. That was April 23rd, and I bet most of you didn't even hear anything about it, did you? Huh. Crazy, huh? So, BLM committed an insurrection yesterday at the Oklahoma Capitol. Now, you won't hear about it in the news, and you sure as hell won't get arrested for it. No, they won't. This was after the Oklahoma governor signed a bill that protects drivers who hit unhinged protesters blocking streets and highways. Of course, the BLM mob said this was racist, and they just stormed on in there. And, in fact, they brought weapons to the Oklahoma City Capitol. See, the guys who brought the weapons was known as the Freedom Riders. And the Freedom Riders, we're going to talk all about them for a second. Who are the Minnesota Freedom Riders? Well, these different guys. Now, these guys are in Minnesota, but armed with AR-15 rifles and sporting bulletproof vests, members of the NM Minnesota Freedom Fighters, formed after the death of George Floyd, describe themselves as a bridge between the police and the African American community. Huh. Imagine if the Proud Boys ran around with bulletproof vests and AR-15 rifles. I don't think they'd be getting such, They want to change the narrative of black people carrying weapons. So they want to be able to, they want more weapons down in the ghetto. Yes. We're tired of being looked at as gang members just because they're gang members who happen to have guns. Right. We're tired of being looked at as the enemy because of the color of our skin. No, you can't get a vaccine, Whitey. Yep. No. Oh, and after George Floyd happened, they knew they had to protect their community. Imagine if this was white guys and they said, after Kenosha, when they burnt down all those regular, normal people's homes, we had to protect our, you goddamn racist. We were getting calls saying that white supremacists were going to come in and pretty much destroy the whole community. White supremacists were going to burn down the community in Minnesota. It was white supremacists that was going to vandalize buildings and break windows. What the fuck? BLM Antifa did that shit. But these guys here, these freedom fighters, they can run around. They're supposed to run around with guns. Don't you understand? They're the heroes, brother. They're the heroes. So, meanwhile, speaking of vaccines, Biden regime preparing for hand-to-hand combat phase to coerce citizens into surrendering to dangerous COVID vaccines that might kill them. Yeah. Despite all the high-pressure sales tactics and tyrannical lockdown policies, only 1 in 5 Americans have lined up for the COVID jab on average. In Mississippi, approximately 21% of the population is fully inoculated, even though the vaccines have been made available to everyone for over a month. In Alabama, that number is 19%, and in Georgia, only about 20% have been coerced into compliance. As the coercive sales tactics, outright lies, malfeasance, and medical tyranny come up short to achieve mass vaccination compliance, the federal government is prepared to use more forceful and invasive policies to get the shots into arms. The Biden regime recently endorsed vaccine passports, which would threaten human rights by violating medical privacy laws and civil rights laws, permanently discriminating and segregating the unvaccinated. If you think this is a war, if you think of this as a war, said Michael Carney, the senior vice president for emerging issues at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation, why is the Chamber of Commerce conducting this policy for the Biden administration? Anybody? Are they part of the government now? Donor class. We're about to enter the hand-to-hand combat phase of the war, said the Chamber of Commerce. You know, the same guys that have been basically janking you around the entire way through as if they are the actual government. More than you wear masks, do that, the other, you know. The Biden regime is prepared to deploy pop-up clinics in hard-to-reach areas and will send vaccinators into neighborhoods with low vaccination rates. Fuck you. Federal government uses medical tyranny and coercion to mass vaccinate. Well, this whole thing, since the very start of into February last year, has been one big long tyranny. I mean, my God. Let's see. We're 16 months almost into this fucking tyranny. The federal government did not study the safety of COVID-19 vaccines in 2020. No! In fact, they knew that every RNA vaccine like this before was basically lethal to all the mammalian test subjects. Instead, the government conducted clinical studies on how to effectively manipulate people to take the vaccine. Yeah, it's one big PR tactic, you know. These clinical studies tested out different messages and psychological ploys to find the most effective methods to compel compliance. These studies of vaccine coercion were conducted for COVID-19 vaccines that only proved to be effective for 2 to 3 months and even caused symptoms of illness in roughly 80% of vaccine recipients. 2 to 3 months and you're almost guaranteed to get sick from something that you're almost guaranteed to survive. Fuck that. These studies of vaccine coercion were conducted long before the experimental COVID-19 vaccines were ever granted emergency authorization by the FDA because the vaccines were going to be approved no matter what. Many of these high-pressure sales tactics have already been used on the population. People have been so restricted and abused by medical edicts that they are desperate to get their lives back. That's right there. By tying vaccination to reopening policy, governments are able to coerce people to comply. There's exactly it. Do what we say or you won't get back the exact freedoms you had before you did what we say. The government has used the scarcity tactic to get more people to sign up, one group at a time. The government has been rolling out strategies that feign compassion to convince certain groups of people that they're high at risk and are being cared for. You know, old people, the blacks above that are excluding the whites and so forth. Yeah. The government has also used the guilt, belonging, community interest, and peer pressure tactics to motivate people to vaccine as part of a select group for the betterment of all. The Biden regime has also appealed to moral duty and even used patriotism to make people believe they're doing a good thing for their country when they take the mystery injection. The unvaccinated will be blamed for the failure of the concocted mystery injection that was never tested. Anyone who chooses not to vaccinate will ultimately be blamed for the inevitable and continual failure of this vaccine regime because, frankly, COVID-19 is a common cold, and vaccination for cold is absolutely fucking insane, but whatever. This shaming tactic has already been identified in the mainstream media. According to MSN, the nation will not be able to reach herd immunity in time to stop worrisome new variants from evading the vaccine, meaning COVID's going to be here forever. The unvaccinated are already being blamed for worrisome new variants. Aren't those just normally called mutations? Viral mutations? That will infect the vaccinated, no matter how many times the vaccinated roll up their sleeve. This is the anger message that the federal government has already studied. This coercion tactic compels the vaccinated to be angry at those who will not comply. The unvaccinated, healthy and gaining immunity to coronaviruses, will be blamed for putting the health of the community at risk, even though most of the people at risk were already completely fat fuck unhealthy people at any rate. Even though the unvaccinated are the ones gaining lifelong immunity and improving herd immunity for the long haul. Yeah, that's actual immunical reality there. The failure of the vaccine, the fact that it doesn't work, is already apparent in the first 4 months, while the CDC already reporting 5,800 cases of COVID-19 post-vaccination problems, issues, some of them extremely fucking severe. Of these, 396 suffered from severe illnesses and 74 patients died. If these post-vaccination infection trends continue, the vaccine should not be considered effective at all, and the mortality rate for people who are infected post-infection would be greater than the mortality rate for wild infection. Moreover, the issue of antibody-dependent enhancement could make the mortality rate of COVID-19 post-vaccination skyrocket even more over the next couple of years. Yeah, just like it did in the minks and the lab rats that these mystery injections were tried on for SARS and MERS. Yeah. Now, you want to talk about crazy? American judges removing children from parental custody for not wearing a mask. No, you can keep your kid if you want to turn your boy into a little girl and chop off their dick, but you better make them wear a mask while they do it. Activism from the judicial branch is on the rise in the United States as deranged leftists demand that everyone who refuses to stay masked and get vaccinated be punished and blocked from seeing their own children. At least 2 parents have incurred the wrath of activist judges like Dale Cohen of Broward County, Florida, who took it upon himself to deny Melanie Joseph access to her son unless she agrees to wear a mask at all times and get jabbed for the Wuhan virus when it is her, quote, turn. Joseph's ex-husband, Michael Manley, presented photos of Joseph unmasked as evidence to suggest in court that she be denied access to her son, and Cohen agreed with this argument. Notice, normal human interaction is a reason to be denied access to other humans, including your own children. What the fuck? I mean, dude, that is a down into the ditch. She is one of these anti-mask people, and she's got the audacity to put that on social media, that she's an anti-mask people, and to expose a child to a flight to North Carolina and to risk the child's health over that is not acceptable to me. So, the child being flown to North Carolina is a great risk to people's health. However, he could ride the fucking Greyhound somehow, and that'd be safe. You figure it out. Instead of defending the Constitution, common sense, justice, or anything like good law, Cohen made a ruling based on his own ignorant opinion that Joseph's son is in danger if he's not around people who are wearing Chinese plastic drapes on their face. As it turns out, Cohen has made several rulings against other parents who he feels are not abiding by the safety restrictions imposed by the American police state to stop the spread of the Wu flu virus. Cohen also has a reputation for mistreating domestic violence victims, which suggests he may have a few skeletons in his own closet. Uh-oh. Cohen has a long-standing reputation for misconduct, which makes for his mishandling of Joseph's case unsurprising. Why is it always these Cohens, Witzes, Bergs, and Steins? Mystery of mysteries. The Founding Father had a cure for all this tyranny. Yeah, it's called a drop and a sharp stop. A similar thing happened to Dr. Michael Epstein, no, it's not spelled there. A family physician from New York City who lost custody of, Michelle. It's Michelle. We're just going to say Michelle, who lost custody of her daughter after the doctor was seen maskless standing on the sidewalk outside her daughter's school. Employees had a meltdown, and the doctor's ex-husband also saw an opportunity to steal custody of the former couple's child by falsely accusing the doctor of negligence for failing to wear a face mask while outdoors. A judge took the child away from the woman, forced her to wear a mask inside her own home in order to reinstate occasional supervised visits. In both cases, refusal to cover their mouths with made-in-China masks resulted in people losing custody of their children at the hands of idiotic, demonic, tyrannical judges who deserve more than just recusal. Yeah. Now, oh my God, guys. So, let's see. It's masks do nothing, absolutely nothing, other than cut your oxygen and cause dental problems and bacterial pneumonia. Yep. It has recently been found scientifically and medically that the COVID-19 pandemic was a fake and that almost all the cases were influenza and that what isn't, frankly, there's about 30,000 deaths that can be attributed solely to COVID, even if you believe the 500,000 number that they're shilling. And I don't. Now, is America led today by anti-Americans? Well, this is Pat Buchanan. Let me ask you a question, Pat. Were the Bolsheviks fucking fellow Russians? Can America unite again to do great things if we are led by people who believe America suffers from a great sickness of the soul and original sins that dates back to our birth as a nation? The answer, Pat, before we even read into this, is going to be fuck no. No, we can't, Pat. No, that's not possible. Yeah. After his long night of prayer for the right verdict to be pronounced, Derek Chauvin was convicted on all 3 counts, and Joe Biden stepped before the White House cameras to tell us what it all meant. Oh, God dang. And when Joe speaks, truly we're in awe. George Floyd's death, said Biden, was a murder in the full light of day. No, it was an OD. You demented fuck. And it ripped the blinders off the whole world to see the systemic racism that is a stain on our nation's soul, the knee on the neck of justice for black Americans. The knee was mostly on the back. The dude OD'd. Biden, let's face it like this. You're the rum-dummy mouthpiece for a communist coup that overthrew the United States electoral system. Okay? Okay. Now, astonishingly, Biden is saying that when Chauvin knelt on the neck of George Floyd, as George was ODing on fentanyl, the world for once was getting a good close look at the diseased soul of America. Yeah, the diseased soul of America is George Floyd. George, Ahmed, Aubrey, and all these other loser thug Negroes that are elevated by the media. That's the disease in the soul of America. What Chauvin was doing to Floyd, said the President of the United States, is a reflection of the kind of justice America delivers to black Americans. Be lucky that they don't get the kind of justice the Tutsi got from the Hutu. This is no aberration, Biden is saying. This is routine reality. No, blacks kill blacks more than anyone else. Nobody kills blacks like blacks kill blacks. Even in American cities, blacks kill each other at roughly the same rate they do in Kinshasa in friggin' the Congo. It's almost like it's genetic, this behavior. And Biden was introduced by Hoochie Mama Harris, who said much the same. America has a long history of systemic racisms. Blacks as Americans and blacks as men in particulars, Big Snood, have been treated throughout the course of our history as less than human. Big Snood! Didn't do. Blacks just didn't do. Okay, so anyhow, Al Sharpton said that we have sins in our soul, and then said, China, come and liberate us. Yeah. Guys, what our diplomats of the world is saying is that our Declaration of Independence, Constitution, and Bill of Rights are interwoven with white supremacy. Well, whites are supreme, and that America was in fact founded by whites for whites, Pat. That's just a fact. None of the founders accepted equality with blacks. Not one of them would accept a Hispanic or a Gook citizen, Pat. That's right. And to this day continues to breed racist. Well, racism's good. See, racism, Pat, what you call racism, is actually loyalty by whites to whites for whites. It's in-group preference, and it's good, just, natural, and right. Right. So Nancy Pelosi went even crazier. She said, George Floyd, thank you for sacrificing your life for justice, for being there to call out to your mom. He was calling out for mama, and that was the broad he was getting high with. How heartbreaking was that? Not at all. I didn't even care. I was like, ooh, look, the OD'd little monkey's going to die. Bye, black pimp. No, your name will always be synonymous with justice. A man that broke into a woman's house and beat her the hell up and stole her shit is now going to be synonymous with justice. There's that disease in the soul of American again. Now, implication, Floyd died to redeem America of her original sin of racism, so George Floyd is Jesus Christ now. All in all, quite a commentary on our leaders. Yeah, they're kooky-ass, low-life, leftist crazies. For again, our president and vice president are saying that this people and country still suffer from a sickness of the soul that dates to its formative days. Racism was never wrong or any kind of sickness. Racial equality and trying to believe that all races are equal and one man and all that kumbaya hippie shit, that's the disease in the soul of America, asshole. Yeah. In 1960, radicals who vilified our country as America with a K were rightly called anti-American. No, I just outright called them Marxist-Leninists. Today, the difference between what they say about America and what our highest elected leaders are saying is hard to discern. It's because in 1960, our leaders were part of the radicals that were anti-American, Pat. Our enemies have picked up on this in Anchorage after Secretary of State Anthony Blinken called Beijing out for repression in Hong Kong and genocide in Xinjiang. China's foreign minister was right back in his face. Yeah, I told him outright, you have no moral high ground. You Americans should look at your own sins and clean up your own house before lecturing the world on political morality, said China. I mean, when China can point their finger at you and call you immoral, you got to be a special kind of low-life pimp. So today that Chinese foreign minister could cite Biden and Harris as his chief witnesses that America's a nation sick in its soul. Well, it is. You see, we have too much diversity. We have too much inclusion. We have too much Martin Luther fucking King. Yeah, we need more James Earl Ray and less Martin Luther King. Yep. Now, we hear our leaders' attacks on America, but where's their defense? They don't have any defense. And notice, this is right where the fucking conservatives go off the, well, what about the poor blacks? I'm going to read this to you, but God almighty, it's horrible to read. What other nation has provided the same measures of personal and political freedoms and material blessings for 40 million black people as the United States is? See how good we are? Look how our blackses live so goods. Why don't we send these blackses away? They're a fucking curse. They're a fucking curse. They're a fucking curse. If people of color are treated as less than human in America, treated as Harris says, why are so many people of color seeking desperately to get across our southern border? Because of the fucking white people here, who are like the goddamn piñata full of golden coins, you idiot. What is the real truth about race in America that goes unmentioned in the mainstream media? Well, that white people are perpetually victimized by blacks and dark-ass Hispanics. That's the real truth, that white girls are the number one most likely person to be raped by blacks and dark Hispanics. That if you're a fucking young man and you're white down in these ghettos full of these darks and Hispanics, it's like living in a fucking war zone with a target on your back. Oh, I forgot. The poor blackses, Pat. Could you tell us more about the poor blackses? Okay, the main perpetrators of violent crimes against black Americans are, no shit, Pat, It's like, it's amazing how they got to try to back up what we all know visually. If you've ever rode a bus through an inner city, oh, Jesus. Black men ages 16 to 40 are 3% of the population, but commit roughly a third of America's violent crimes. So, if we just put to sleep 3% of the population, 33% of rape, murder, robbery, and the rest could go. Wow, these people are truly a blessing and a strength. Defund police, restrict police, remove police, and you will get more of what the police prevent. Crimes, especially violent crimes, in your community. Well, I don't live in the black community, Pat. And if niggers come into my community to commit crime, like you come into my house, Kunta Kinte, I'll crack your fucking head open, take you out back, fire up the brush chipper, and that'll be the end of you. Now, when Biden and Harris spoke of systemic racism affecting our society, they were not describing their enlightened selves. Well, no, they always mean us poor peoples. And it was Hillary Clinton who identified the people that the leftist elites have in mind. You could put half of Republican white conservatives into what I call the basket of deplorables, the racists, sexists, homophobics, xenophobic, Islamophobics, phobics, you name it, man. Some of these folks are irredeemable, but thankfully, they are not America. See, you just happen to be born an American white boy. All these other people who never would have had fuck all to do with America if the founders had had their say, they're actually America. You're just a surplus white dude who's got to work and pay taxes, bro. So basically, guys, the trick is what you need to do. It's just remember, hey guys, my government hates me. And, well, in episode My Government Hates Me, 1001, Biden's DHS cancels fines for illegal aliens who refuse to leave the USA. You know those deportation fines? I got you, not anymore, bro. Biden's weaknesses allowing all sorts of things, but basically, President-elect Joe Biden's Homeland Security nominee. Here we go. Homeland Security announced Friday it was canceling fines for illegal immigrants who refused to leave and would grant an amnesty for any fines already imposed by the Trump administration. You thought there was going to be some kind of enforcement? Nope. Secretary Two-Face Spick, who's selling us out, said the fines haven't had much effect. And so he saw no need to leave them in place because why should people who break our laws be punished unless you're one of those people who was at the Capitol on January 6th, in which case you should be burned at the stake. Am I right? Am I right? We can enforce our immigration laws without resorting to ineffective and unnecessary punitive measures. So you can enforce the law without punitive measures? What? Are you going to do? Ask them to respect the law? Mr. Mayorkas did not detail the data on fines that he said led him to believe they were not effective. He said the department will work with the Treasury Department to cancel the fines immigrants had already racked up. The move is the latest in a series of actions the new administration has taken to lift penalties and ease the life of illegal immigrants who, other than their unlawful status in the country, have managed to keep a relatively clean criminal record. Oh, so the administration has taken action to ease the life of illegals. You regular citizens that pay taxes, to the lions with you. The power to impose fines has been on the books for several decades, but it had not been done until the Trump administration. The power to impose fines had been on the books for decades, guys. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement had said at the time it would use the fines both against illegal immigrants who'd been ordered deported but refused to go, and against migrants who had promised to voluntarily depart by a certain time but never left. ICE issued massive fines totaling in the hundreds of thousands of dollars against several high-profile cases of illegal immigrants who were supposed to leave, but instead took sanctuary in churches. Oh, so those people can just stay now because they defied the law long enough. So they're not the Branch Davidians and didn't get burnt out of their church, huh? Note taken. AG Merrick Garland pledges to give police groups heads up on future probes. Attorney General Merrick Garland on Friday afternoon, this is April 23rd, promised to give leaders of some of the nation's largest police groups advance notice of future investigations into local police departments. But Mr. Garland cautioned that the tip-off would only come in cases where he could give a heads up. He warned attendees that because of the sensitive nature of the investigations, he may not always be able to notify people who, aren't special enough to be notified. He also told attendees he expects the Justice Department to launch additional probes into local police departments. You thought that this was all going to end at some point, did you, Copper? No. You're exactly equal to us convict Nazis now. How do you feel about that, Cop? How do you feel about that the Attorney General thinks of you as a white supremacist Nazi for arresting thugs that commit crime? Isn't that great? Now, it was Mr. Garland's first meeting with law enforcement groups since being sworn in. Leaders of the Fraternal Order of Police, National Sheriff's Association, International Association of Chiefs of Police, Major Cities Chiefs Association, National Association of Police Organizations, and National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives were among those who attended the meeting. The meeting lasted about an hour, was described as cordial and very successful at taking away your rights and ensuring that you could be punked like a bunch of little bitches. One source said the meeting reinforced hopes that discussions over disagreements and within the Biden administration will be civil and productive. Oh, I'm sure. I'm totally positive. Because there's only so many civil and productive ways you can say your police department's full of a bunch of Nazi racists who oppress thugs' rights. Another source described the meetings as general. Let's see. Other topics discussed included qualified immunity, which shields law enforcement from certain lawsuits, and making more grant money available to local departments. Both topics were briefly touched upon. The investigation of the Minneapolis Police Department follows this week's jury verdict that former police officer Derek Chauvin murdered George Kirby after George Kirby OD'd and took 3 times the amount of fentanyl needed to die. Obviously, George Chauvin made him eat that dope. It will assess whether the department uses excessive force, including during last year's racial justice protests. Oh, stopping someone from from pillaging Foot Locker, that's racism. And engages in discriminatory conduct, meaning because blacks commit more crimes, more blacks are arrested. Yeah. Investigators from the Justice Department, Civil Rights Division have already spoken with police officers and potential victims of the city. Oh, Mr. Garland said this week, adding he hopes for broad public participation, meaning there's going to be a bunch of, no justice, no peace, you have to listen to my reality, So what's going to happen? Just a bunch of screaming at black, crazy-ass ghetto women in their hair, hats, and weaves. Now, how crazy is it got? Oh! You know Tucker Carlson really has these people pissed off. Tucker Carlson says Washington Post contacted his college classmates looking for dirt. They're digging up dirt for a potential story. Mr. Carlson slammed Washington Post owner Jeff Bezos and the paper's media critic Eric Wemple after he said the paper had been reaching out to people he hadn't spoken to in decades. We spent today hearing from quite a few old college classmates, in some cases people we've been out of touch with for 30 years. The primetime host told viewers, it was nice, but here was the occasion for it. Jeff Bezos had one of his minions, a mentally unbalanced, middle-aged man named Eric Wemple, pull our dusty college yearbook and call around and see if we'd done anything naughty at the age of 19. Mr. Carlson continued his monologue by inviting Jeff Bezos on the show to reminisce about the 1980s. But before Bezos drops any more of his billions on opposition research, you should know that it will not affect any election outcome, he said. This is a news show. It's not a political campaign. No one here is running for anything or plans to. On the other hand, if Jeff Bezos wants to come over to reminisce about 1987 on the show, he's always welcome anytime. Mr. Bezos did not immediately respond for comment. Now, this, kids, is just how fucking clown world we've really went. And, Yeah, the guys, the fact is that when, how do I say this? This is as crazy as it gets, right? We have newspapers trying to discredit media people because they don't toe the line. So there's wrong think and right think, but there's no communism. You see, communism always has a wrong think and a right think, just like in Orwell. And if you have wrong think, you go to room 101 for the special treatment, Winston. That's how it works. That's how communism is. That's how it works. You know? With that, guys, I'm going to go for a while. I got a lot more to read. Probably in the morning I'll get to it. And then I'll try to get this up. Y'all stay good. Take care. God bless. Oh, folks, how y'all doing today? Oh, it's another day. So today, guys, we have to delve into, an immense web of lies. And then, sometimes you're glad that you knew about certain media but shuffled it to the side. Because I tell you this, back in January when I first got this New York Times article that we'll probably read here in a while. I'll read through this first bit first, and I'll get to that. I probably had a stroke getting through it in January. It basically says that because you and I think that it's wrong that the United States government has murdered people, including but not limited to the 25 kids, 86 people at Waco, Vicky Weaver and Randy Weaver's son. And then I can never remember his name. I'm sorry, it just slides, And then now this Ashley Babbitt brought, and they're all killed for the same basic thing: offending the sensibilities of the ruling caste. And in Ashley's case, she almost entered the sanctum of sanctum, the lobby of the speaker. And the New York Times announces that she nearly got into the lobby, and that means, because you swine, pig, lowlife peasants can't be up in the lobby of the speaker. So that's why we're going to start with little Jesus. Now, those of you who aren't into Jesus, just skip forward 5 or 10 minutes, and you can usually be out of that. If not, just track it. You'll find it. Just like mostly, again, this is the thing. Anybody who thinks, well, the title doesn't say this. Look, guy, I read sometimes 200 pages of news that I condense down into some kind of narrative for y'all, right? Imagine trying to make a title for that. If you don't like a given bit, go forward 5 minutes. You might be into a totally different subject that you do. Why? The assault on your personality and being is multifaceted, my son. Yeah. Do you have to like all of it? Do you think I like knowing all this? So, with that, my son, we are going to read some Missal. Cry with joy to God, all the earth, Alleluia. Sing a psalm to his name, Alleluia. Give glory in his praise, Alleluia, Alleluia. Say to the Lord, how awesome are thy works, Lord. In the greatness of thy power, thine enemies shall cower before thee. Glory to God in the heavens, and on earth peace to men of good will. We praise thee, we bless thee, we adore thee, we glorify thee, we give thanks to thee for thy great glory. Lord God, heavenly King, God the Father Almighty, Lord Jesus Christ, the only begotten Son, Lord God, Son of the Father, Lamb of God, who takest away the sins of the world, have mercy on us. Who takest away the sins of the world, receive our prayers. Who sittest at the Father's right hand, have mercy on us. For thou alone art holy, thou alone art Lord, thou alone art the Most High, Jesus Christ with the Holy Spirit in the glory of God the Father. Amen. The Lord be with you. Let us pray. God, who dost show the light of truth to those who stray, so that they may return to the way of salvation, grant to all who profess the Christian faith that they may practice what befits its name and reject what does it harm. Through our Lord Jesus Christ, thy Son, who is God, living and reigning with thee in the unity of the Holy Spirit, forever and ever. Amen. Epistle of the Blessed Peter the Apostle. Beloved, it is the will of God that you should silence the ignorant criticism of fools by doing good. You are free men, but must not, of course, regard your freedom as an excuse for wickedness, for you are God's servants, the picked men of God. Treat all men with respect, and the brethren with love. Fear God and honor the emperor. Servants must be obedient and respectful to their masters, and not only kind to reasonable masters, but to ill-tempered ones as well. It is a sign of grace in Jesus Christ our Lord. Thanks be to God. So, we're the servants of God. That's great. That's great. Hallelujah, hallelujah. The Lord hath sent redemption to his people. Hallelujah. It was necessary for Christ to suffer and rise from the dead, and so enter into his glory. Hallelujah. Now, the Lord be with you, and with you also. A passage from the Holy Gospel according to John. Glory to thee, O Lord. This is John 16. At that time Jesus said to his disciples, A little while, and you will see me no longer, and again a little while, and you will see me again. For I am going to the Father. And some of his disciples said to one another, What does he mean by saying to us, A little while, and you will see me no longer, and again a little while, and you will see me again? And by saying, I am going to the Father. What is this little while that he talks about? They said. We do not know what he means. As Jesus knew that they wanted to question him, he said to them, You are asking one another about my saying, A little while, and you will not see me. And again a little while, and you will see me again. I tell you truly, you are about to weep and lament, but the world will rejoice. You will grieve, but your grief will turn into joy. When a woman is in labor, she is distressed at the approach of her time. But when she has given birth to her child, she no longer remembers her pangs for joy that a man has been born into the world. So, too, you will have your grief at present, but I will see you again, and your hearts will rejoice, and no one will take away your joy. Praise to thee, O Christ. Through the words of the gospel, may our sins be forgiven. I believe in one Lord, the Almighty Father, maker of heaven and earth, and of all things visible and invisible. I believe in one Lord Jesus Christ, only begotten Son of God, born of the Father before all ages, God from God, light from light, true God from true God, begotten not made, one in substance with the Father, through whom all things were made. For us men and for our salvation he came down from heaven, took flesh by the Holy Spirit from the Virgin Mary, and was made man. He was crucified for us, suffered under Pontius Pilate, and was buried. On the third day he rose again, according to the Scriptures. He ascended into heaven and sits at the right hand of the Father, and he will come again in glory to judge the living and the dead, and his reign will have no end. I believe also in the Holy Spirit, Lord and giver of life, who proceeds from the Father and Son, who together with the Father and Son is adored and glorified, who spoke through the prophets. And I believe in one holy, Catholic, and Apostolic Church. I confess one baptism for the remission of sins, and I look for the resurrection of the dead and the life of the world that is to come. Amen. Now, we will simply read John, the first passage of John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him was made nothing that was made. In him was life, and life was the light of men, and the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it. A man came, sent from God, whose name was John. He came as a witness to give testimony to the light, that all might believe through him. He was not the light, but was to give testimony to the light. The Word was the true light, which enlightens every man who comes into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, and the world did not recognize him. He came to his own, and they did not receive him. But to all who did receive him, and who believe in his name, to these he gave power to become children of God, born not of blood, nor by the will of flesh, nor by the will of man, but of God. And the Word became flesh, and dwelt among us. And we saw his glory, the glory of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. Thanks be to God. With that, we have one bit. We're going to read just a little bit more. Because why? Well, you know. Let's see. I was reminded that there are people being persecuted right now for being just and righteous. Well, I mean, in their view, they are defending their emperor, are they not? Yeah? I don't view the man in Florida lounging while his people languish as an emperor. That's me. I mean, you know, I have a more like British sea captain type view of leadership, but what can you say? That's just Curtis. However, these souls probably could use a little thought, and I just found this earlier, so I cry unto thee, O Lord. I said, Thou art my refuge and my portion in the land of the living. Attend unto my cry, for I am brought very low. Deliver me from my persecutors, for they are stronger than I. Bring my soul out of prison, that I may praise thy name. The righteous shall encompass about me, for they shall deal bountifully with me. Yeah, let our people go. Now, what can you say? It comes to an old convict to say that these mostly old people and boys and various housewife chicks that they have locked up over this alleged greatest assault on fucking democracy. Like, are you insane? Okay. We all do know that there have been riots out in the black areas around Washington, D.C. many times since the Civil War. Right, Joe? We all do remember the fucking planes that ran into the buildings in New York. Now, no matter why or how they ran into the building, Joe, pay attention, old man. There was a lot of freedom stripped away with these security agencies being given the power to, bring the war home to people. I've been saying it since... Guys, Curtis ain't new to this show. Like I say, fellas, I see a clear line between the people who died at Waco, between Vicki Weaver and Randy Weaver's son, and this Babbitt woman. You know what I mean? Totally. I also see the progression from, let's be honest, the utterly stupid rum dummy, Ronald Reagan, and this rum dummy Joe. They're so fucking similar, it's gaggingly sickening if you can remove yourself from the party politics and say, you see, my son's symmetry. When you see a symmetry like that, you're dealing with, our enemies. It matters not, boys and sons. There's too much in too little time, so we have a lot of things. And the most important thing at this juncture is these news articles that I pick out to read. Did you think I just do this randomly? No, I don't. Did you see? Right. I pick them out because they point out things that should be, addressed. Like, well, the American right is the absolute target of Washington's new war on terror. And that's right. I mean, fellas, it's to the point where, and now I had made a joke. I think I can find it in audio form, and I want to say I recorded it somewhere around 2014, 15-ish, yeah? When Antifa and the rest first started their fucking antics. I want to say that was that Trayvon Martin, maybe? Any rate, then when Ferguson was burned, then there was Baltimore was on fire, and I made a recording, where if you appease these people. Okay, so I've been into this a while, and I'm an old hand. I understand reality, folks. I'm the sort of guy that, now believe it or not, this is funny. Like, for instance, these leftists, these people who think they're going to, dictate things they're used to the woke crybaby, Marxist, super Marxist influenced Hispanics. Yeah, there's a little problem. The Gonzaleses, Lopezes, and the rest who were born on this side of the border, who originally were here when the Spanish were here, but sided with the United States against Mexico, they don't want the other beaners overrunning them at all. In any way. Do you understand? And if you want to talk about some anglicized people, well, they speak Spanish, most of these, but they also speak English well, and they, you know what I mean? They consider themselves American citizens. Now, they're part of the right wing, you see. Just right there, that gives this right wing that Joe wants to declare war on, if they're smart. These people, again, they don't want to mix with you. This is the key thing for all you racists that are like, what? You're treating us? No. They're cool with racial caste systems. So like white people that want to be white people, that's cool with Hispanics. They don't give that's just normal. As long as you don't openly act viciously towards the rest, they don't care that you want to be exclusive. This is normal. That's how Blancos act in Hispanic society, you see. So, like, that means the whole southwestern deserts and all those mountains out there that they can't find people in now, you can just go up there and be, you know, the Fremen and shit. You say that's not good, and I say, have you been paying attention to the Empire's success rate at bombing people out of mountains lately, baby? Bro, over in Afghanistan, they have went free fire fucking friendly fun fuck over there, and they still can't thumb down the fucking fuzz heads. They just can't do it, bro. Okay? The felt heads are still fighting. Okay? Fighting more. The Taliban has multiplied its strength by 3 times over. 3 times. That means on the ground they have 3 times as many men as they can launch in their little spring offenses. You know what I mean? They take about 2, 3, 4,000 casualties a year. Every year. Since we've been there. Sometimes we nail more. But most of those that we get are civilians that are around where the Taliban's at. The actual Taliban's only a percentage of the people they're counting in those piles, bro. You understand? I do. Okay? Again, brother, I can end all this fast. You just let me talk to the local chieftain and it'd be like, bro, we want to have a duel. You know, a duel? We're going to break out with some knives. These are the knives we're going to use. You find a guy that wants to use this knife and stick it in my chest. And you send him here. And then I will wait here. And then we will fight. And whoever wins, wins. And then we all can go home in honor. War ended. Problem solved. You see? Is that insane? Yeah. Yeah. But it's more honorable than the way these Washington war hawk pussies think, you see. You see, my friends, do you understand why this hasn't went down in America yet? Why this open war on terror hasn't happened in America yet? They've had since January to assemble forces. They had to disperse the National Guard they had. That means they couldn't pull it off. They couldn't maintain it. Why? What happened? Can you answer that? Think. I'm going to tell you what I think happened. I think their intelligence people said, that's going to be a nix. You see, their actual intelligence people, the actual security analysts and the people who create and solve problems, they know that, you see, if they can't pacify Afghanistan, where they just have a very few, very old, sort of light, heavy weapons. They're technically heavy weapons, but they're sort of thing that are man-portable. You understand? You know. So they have a few mortars, a few old rockets, and you know what I mean. But effectively, you're talking about people with Kalashnikov rifles fighting it out against the American Air Force. Okay? And maintaining themselves in the field. Now, they damn well fucking know that if those people in the mountains of Afghanistan can do that with the resources they have, that in North America, they have absolutely no fucking effective chance of maintaining any control over all but, I'll break out a map if you like. I'll show you the areas that I'm sure that they anticipate they can control. And you'll notice that there's a vast area where all the coal, gas, and the rest is that they don't think and there's no chance they'll ever control. Why? Distance, my son. Fucking distance. Also the fact, how do I say this? The cavemen in Afghanistan, yes, there's a few of them that are super smart. Everybody thinks that I don't understand this thing like an IQ curve or something, but yeah, I do. But it's very minimal. And frankly, they're bellicose people. They don't mind dying in frontal offensives. It's honorable to them to die for their village and their people, bro, don't you? No, at any rate. Anyway, here in North America, the population's more technically advanced, more savvy, and there's a greater number of people who have been through not just basic military training, because the empire has been in war mode for, 22 years now? There's an awful lot of burnouts out here that when they start trying to round people up like they do in an Afghan village are going to go into fuck you mode, okay? And rightfully so, because, who wants to be black bagged like those people in Bagram Air Base? Anybody? Do you want to? You see, these are the kind of people they're trying to get to do war against you. Before I start reading all this, I want you to understand this. That I don't think it was this Ashley Babbitt thing that kicked this off. And I don't think it was Joe Biden. I think, again, it's a long process that's been going since right after I was born, frankly. till right about now. You know what I'm saying? And it's come to fruition, you see. But, on the other hand, my son, I don't think they have it all their own way. You know what I mean? I don't know way at all. I mean, it's one thing to have bumbly Reagan. It's another thing to have brain dead Biden. I mean, rumbly dumbly Reagan was, boy, he was pretty stupid. But I mean, at least George Bush could effectively make it look like he wasn't manipulating him. Kamala Harris and the wife and the rest. I mean, yes, it's nice that Joe got his wife a flower. I'm the last. I won't even cut the man for that. I was like, well, that was nice of him. It is. It's sincere and nice. And I won't, I'm not that low. You know what I mean? But he's still a brain dead rum dummy puppet. What can I say? Do you see? So people try to personalize this into Biden. No. This is sections of the FBI, vast sections, almost all the FBI, the CIA, the DIA to some extent. You see what I mean? There's very few of the security agencies that aren't straight lined up against you. And the ones that aren't, I don't think they're there. I don't think they have some ethical problem. They're not the administrators now. The guys on the ground, on the other hand, the CIA killers, that's exactly who they're still trying to fucking play games to get you. Yeah. And if they can't do that, I used to always think that the UN blue hat shit was nutty, but not so much no more. Because, okay. If there isn't some kind of subversion going on in America, I'll be buggered, right? No, it looks like some kind of Zionists have took over, and for some reason they're taking causes from the chinks. That's what I see. And then for some reason, we're supposed to hate the Russians for everything the Chinese are up and about. And then also, too, because the Ukrainians have given a lot of money to the Democratic Party and the respectable peoples, we're supposed to hate the Russians because the respectable peoples have gotten a lot of monies. You get the $1 billion, you remember that, anybody? Yeah. Okay, so these various corruptions are the real reason why these people listen. Some of these people, like I said before, some of these get it done peoples, they work purely for money. Those people they'll get. That's it. That's maybe 25% of them. The other 75% are up in the air. So this is why they don't think they can trust their own military force. But who they really are trying to put a squeeze on, from what I'm gathering, is the intelligence corps. Right? Intelligence, counterintelligence, signals intelligence, all that, dude. I mean, they're on that. Those guys got to be fucking loyal to the new order, I'm sure it's this way. Again, my sons, I'm the only person who's ever talked to you about an ethno-state or being free of these tyrants, and has straight told you to your face at the same time that secret police are necessary, and that I want to be chief secret policeman in the fucking ethno-state. Period. I want that and a couple other small ministry ships, a little deputy ministry of justice and education, and I'll require being a minister of the interior, meaning I'll have police and courts. But other than that, I don't really require anything else. Someone else can be emperor. It's fine with me, you know what I mean? So guys, I know when I'm seeing vile people of just my own type gonna come on down like Smoke the Dragon and grab onto you, because that's what they're trying to do here. That's exactly what's coming about, my man. That's why the demonization of these people. The same way they demonize Vicky Weaver still, and the people at Waco, they still try to gin up their 4 assassins that got killed, and downplay the children they cooked to death to save. Which, God, fuck, I mean, it's just, that's, just like they're going to say, and I remember I have read this at the top of the next section. This is 21 pages I'm going to read. Then the next we'll go to the far right idolizes dead woman. Evil Nazis actually think that murder is bad. The New York Times is going to try to spin that by swinging it down with woman's KKK USA, don't you know, baby? So I want you to keep in mind just exactly what these people call far right when I read this to you. Because I said a long time ago that, like, policemen, cops, detectives, IA, even you fucks are going to become Nazis one day. No matter how much you kowtowed to the diversity, no matter how much you said, oh, I love the Zionist. Gotta go out back, Jack. You can't be trusted. Now, I don't like to gloat. Well, okay, I do. It's one of my failings. But I've been largely correct. The upside-down, bizarro, crazy world that I started predicting as soon as the government, during these, like, Mike Brown riots and whatever, started accommodating BLM and Antifa. I mean, I've been talking about it since then, Welly, like, this is, I mean, as soon as they started that, this little eventual psychological media intelligence economic war against every one of you out there who isn't part of their little urban gang. I mean, damn, if you didn't notice under Obama that they were turning these, okay, I seen this deal with this dude doing like, Obama is my savior, Obama brought us goods, Obama brought us wealth, you know what I mean? And if that isn't like some type of like dance cadence for a march, boy, you're fucking crazy. And if you're going to tell me those Negroes didn't militarize that nonsense, bro, come on, man. It's right out there on the streets in various cities, torching things and stealing and looting Nikes, bro. Oh, that was way back. Like right after Obama got in, they did these weird, I don't even remember what it was right off. I'd have to actually really think hard how the money got to him that created this little formation of orcs doing this little, you know what I mean? But yeah, it was like, Obama is my savior. I was like, that, what? Yeah, I can be president because Obama's president. And you're like, oh shit. I wonder how good Obama could loot some Nikes. All right, guys. With that, we're going to read some lovely information. Again, the American right is the new target of the war on terror. Oh, that's absolutely true. The security walls around the U.S. Capitol may have been removed, but the federal response to the January 6th protests has only just begun. Yeah. The Democrats in Washington are determined to treat the incident as an on par with the events of September 11th, no more important than, which may explain a troubling report about the potential use of the famed no-fly list. Yesterday, Nick Fuentes, he's a kid who talks shit in front of with a green screen behind him. What the fuck, A right-wing social media pundit, a kid who just has views, who attended the January 6th protest. Well, that's it. That's it. KGB him. We want this guy. We want black bag. Black bag. Oh, sorry. No, not that kind of secret policeman today. The caring secret policeman. No. Anyway, prevented him from traveling to Florida for a political rally. So, this kid was prevented from getting on an airplane because he'd been placed on the federal no-fly list because he attended a protest. Listen, okay, even if we admit that there may have been some property damage, some sort of, we'll say, malicious mischief, if you will, and a bit of trespassing that occurred, is there any proof that Mr. Fuentes engaged in any of that? Then why in the fuck would he be considered a threat to anybody that would need to be KGB-style limited in his movements? The KGB and all communist, Soviet, Chinese Maoist security police do just this. Vietnam does it. Cambodia. Vietnam's probably, I guess, as good as it comes from Maoism, but do you really want to live in Vietnam? Okay. Anyhow, this thing's equal to the September 11th. Well, Mr. Fuentes shared on social media audio of an airline employee suggesting that his flying restriction did come from the Transportation Security Administration. Later that night, Tucker Carlson informed his audience that his staff could neither confirm nor deny the report. Well, that was good of Tucker to at least bring it up, because this is the kind of things you see in third world communist Eastern Bloc countries. Any of you older gentlemen in the audience, for the Lord's sake of God, you know this. I mean, listen. Everybody's going to talk about the Nazis, and it's funny because travel papers predate the Nazis, and you know where they predate them from? Oh, that's right, Bolshevik Russia. Yeah. Also, too, the Paris Commune. You ever heard of that? How about Bela Kun's little reign of terror? You know anything about that? How about the Spartacus little bloodbath? You know anything about that? You see, when you do know anything about these, what you see is a definite pattern of the left to use political warfare and repression against its enemies, of which obviously Mr. Fuentes is their enemy. Now, anyhow, but go to Tucker to bring that up. Now, while critics pointed to previous social media posts which document his being removed from a plane for failing to comply with mask policies, Fuentes has noted that he had no problem flying to Washington in January. Uh-oh. It is unclear whether federal authorities will be in any rush to clarify the situation. Oh, I'm going to say it's going to be like molasses in the dead of winter, yeah. But there is no reason not to assume that federal authorities would attempt to use this war on terror tool against political opponents. No, there's not. Particularly when you consider the rhetoric coming out of the Congress, out of the media, out of these academics. You know? I mean, dude, they're talking about re-educating 80 million Trump voters. I want you to make understood, if you take re-educate to mean what it would mean in, say, Maoist China, that would mean you and your wife go to a camp separate and your kids are indoctrinated by the state. Does that sound charming to you? Because if they will even talk openly of re-educating people, I mean, this was all over the Twitter sphere. Why wouldn't they keep people from moving around? They'll obviously censor people. This is a tool too. I mean, Alexander Solzhenitsyn, for instance, was put in Gulag for publishing, not Gulag Archipelago, Cancer Ward. Cancer Ward got him a $5, bro. He knew it'd get him time. He published it right openly at the Soviet Academy of Literature. Solzhenitsyn was a brave man, dude. Now, do you know what I'm saying? And well, I've read Solzhenitsyn, quite a great amount of him, you know. Not all the Gulag Archipelago. It's an immense work in its totality, but I've read extended extracts. You know what I mean? Right? Yeah, he's a good dude, man. And his point that if people just stand up to it at the beginning and say, no, you can stop it. That's right, that you can. Anyhow, from its inception, what it originally began as 16 names federal authorities had connected to potential future terrorist attacks quickly grew to over 1 million. Oh, really? As is the case with other surveillance tools handed over to the deep state, there is very little oversight or due process involved on how federal authorities handle potential terrorist threats. Yeah, we're going to read more about that in a while. Since January, there has been a concerted effort by Democratic leaders, former deep state officials, and America's most despicable neoconservatives to push the Biden administration to utilize the power of the federal government against the supporters of Donald Trump, against any other dissent, frankly. And yeah, that's exactly what's happening. You're witnessing the sort of Republicans as the permanent party of we lose, and somehow our base that remains pays us, and the Democrats as the permanent party of we win, and big government pays us to oppress the Republicans, who the Republicans lie to and sort of shoe shine. Yeah, right. Now, while the incident at the Capitol on January 6th are used to justify these calls, the weaponization of federal power against political opponents goes back almost as long as the federal government itself. I know for sure that it goes back into the Clinton years. Waco, burnt, children, dead. There. Vicky Weaver, son, shot, dead. You know, that there seems like weaponization to me in the most serious way, because the way that the media addressed those people was basically these children had to be burnt alive to save them from an evil cult. Yeah, my mind reeled against that very first time I ever heard it. I said, that's going to be a hard no. Going to be a real hard no. You know? Anyhow. So, in more recent years, President Biden's previous service in the White House saw a Democratic administration that used both the IRS and Department of Homeland Security to target conservatives, and I might note the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms to run guns to Mexican cartels, which cartels are now using those guns, from what I can get, at the border, even though those media reports are. Another reason to expect escalation from the Biden administration, well, it'd be the rhetoric, yeah, against vocal figures like Fuentes, well, against anybody, any of opposition, bro. There will be many of us. They're going to have to probably, again, it ain't going to be a good day for these tyrants, you know. I don't think they know what they've done. Again, they can't thumb down one whole province of Afghanistan for 6 months at a time. They can't disarm them. How are they going to disarm all of you? And by disarm, I mean take away not just firearms that exist now, but the means to make things that will, make you free from them, I'll just say, to make it nice. They can't, just like they can't do it for the Taliban. Not without reducing you all the way down to the fucking Stone Age, and even then you can toss rocks. So, do you understand, my friend? They know this. I know this. You know this. Why are these people doing this dumbass dance of tyranny? I don't know. Maybe they're just compartmentalized off the information. They think they can juggle it all around long enough to get what they want. It's madness. But oh well. Anyhow, the majority of Republican voters do not simply oppose Joe Biden due to politics, but flatly reject his legitimacy. Yeah, you see, there it is, too. There are a good section of the people who voted for Trump who think this was a rigged election, right? It was jimmied, it was stilted, and Arizona is what it is, you know? The fact is we all saw the weird vote count stop, we all saw the weird percentage resets, and we all have seen the suitcase come out from under the table. And there it is. There it is. I'm not going to pretend that I didn't see what I saw because the media says something ain't true through fact checkers that are bought by the same people who pay for the voting machines and etc. and other corruptions. No! And you see how that works? I just will not, sir. I cannot be bothered to do so. No. But exactly this is precisely the sort of they say attack in this article, but really it's not an attack. It's just a statement that states fear the most. You are naked. You do not have legitimacy in this power. You do not have this authority. You're a blind, naked, bloody tyrant. You see? That's the kind of statements they can't handle. Those are most because they're true. Because you see, the increasing use of the, you've ever heard the scientific jargon they use? I mean, has it occurred to you, deep state people, that the reason that they probably have to do this in shifts is because I'm one of the only people who doesn't jargonize or bullshit. I just read what they say here, and I say, huh. You know, and then commentize and editorialize as I need to. Now, and anyhow, but they have this scientific jargon that they use where they obscure, it's an apologia for the state rule. And basically what they do is, well, one side's good, Democrats good, Republicans bad, poo-poo. There, that sums it right up. That sums it right up. Sugar and spice and all that's nice, you know what I mean, Buzz. A robber who justified his theft by saying that he really is helping his victims by his spending giving a boost to retail trade would find few converts. But when the theory is closed in basic economic equations and impressive references to the multiplier effect, it unfortunately carries more conviction. Yeah, well, the fact is, that's all neat, but what I would like to have happen is I think I'd like to have actual robbers at places like Foot Locker and every mom and pop stores that's been looted and burnt down. You have my sympathies, by the way, every one of you. Well, what the fuck? I mean, I don't know how hard it could be for the government to come out and say, there have obviously been riots, and we're sorry, mom and pops, your business was burnt down. What can we do to actually help you? Where they deny that there was even a fucking riot that burnt down your business. They just say it was a protest, and yeah, you need to get protest insurance. I mean, why, in what fucking rational country on the planet Earth is it a right to burn some small, like, grocery store or cigarette shop or whatever out of business? Seriously? Now, basically, the assault on common sense prestige. Yeah, that's exactly right, That's exactly right. We have a serious assault on, common sense. Like, okay. FISA court signs off on warrantless surveillance despite numerous FBI abuses. Yeah. FISA courts have excused yet another year of FISA abuse by the FBI and signed off on their desire to do so again in 2021. Well, that's lovely. Americans woke up to the FISA court in 2017 when we learned about material criminal actions that the FBI participated in during the Obama years. We also learned by 2020 and 2021 that the FBI would not investigate or prosecute 2020 election fraud cases, convincing all Americans that the FBI was truly corrupt, partisan, and again, in on the fix. The part where they tried to hamstring a political candidacy to ensure the other candidate won, and that they took information that was opposition research from Hillary Clinton and used it as part of a legal briefing against the dude, like you do in the African third world dictatorship. That might convince us that we're in an African third world dictatorship. You know what I mean? Now, in spite of all this, we now find out that the FBI continued its criminal ways from the FBI administration into the Trump administration, and yet the FISA courts, who knew this, decided to give the FBI another chance. Well, the Washington Examiner reports, the Federal Intelligence Surveillance Court's presiding judge signed off on the sweeping surveillance powers held by federal spy agencies. A newly declassified yearly report shows, despite finding widespread violations of the FBI's rules, its own rules they violated now, related to handling and searching of massive number of emails and other intercepts collected without a warrant. So they're spying, generally, on American citizens. Judge James Boasberg, the top judge of the FISA court, issued a 67-page ruling in November, which was made public on Monday, dealing with FBI analyst searches of information on U.S. citizens in emails and other data sources that the National Security Agency has collected. Despite a number of problems highlighted by the judge, similar to those highlighted in a December 2019 ruling by the FISA court, Boasberg gave the green light to the NSA's warrantless surveillance program, authorized under Section 702 of the FISA Amendments Act, for yet another year. The program stems from U.S. big companies assisting the NSA overseas with intercepting the communications of foreign targets, some of whom are communicating with U.S. citizens. Oh. Despite improper searches by the Bureau, the judge largely gave the FBI a pass, arguing many of the violations occurred before newly implemented reforms from the Bureau were put in place. Well, isn't that handy? While the court is concerned about the apparent widespread violations of quarrying standard, it lacks sufficient information at this time to assess the adequacy of the FBI system changes and training post-implementation, meaning they're not going to do jack. Under these unique circumstances, nothing's going to happen. and the absence of evidence to the contrary, the court is willing to again conclude that the improper queries described above do not determine its prior determination or undermine, its prior determination that implementation of the documentation required. The FBI's querying and minimalization procedures meet statutory and Fourth Amendment requirements, meaning you are now in an African dictatorship and it's legal. Isn't that sad? It isn't the first time the FBI lied to the FISA court. No, and it won't be the last time. Yeah. In 2016, John Carlin lied to the FISA court, and he is now acting deputy director of, acting deputy attorney general under Biden. Well, meanwhile, did I mention that in a third world republic, the opposition get raided and knocked over? A federal investigator searched Rudy Giuliani's apartment and office. Prosecutors obtained the search warrants as part of an investigation into whether Mr. Giuliani broke lobbying laws as President Trump's personal lawyer. Lobbying laws. Guys, if you want to talk about digging at the bottom of the fucking barrel, lobbying laws is right where it is, particularly when we're looking at one of the most corrupt fucking presidential families ever to exist. I mean, I understand that everybody does a little wheel and deal, but Biden and his brood take the cake, bro. So Rudy, I think Rudy's straight up, to be honest. I've actually always kind of admired Rudy. I mean, yeah, he's a little weird in his personal habits, and I don't agree with everything about Rudy, but Rudy is a prosecutor and a public servant. I didn't find him to be a bad prosecutor. That's the cases he took on seemed to be meaningful and, you know what I mean, real. You know what I'm saying? I don't know about every single little thing he ever did as a prosecutor, and I rightfully don't care. But I do know that you don't go search ex-presidents, lawyers' houses, unless you're trying to jail ex-presidents. Third world dictatorship. Say it. Banana Republic America. You are here. Just put a big banana right over America, and you are there. At any rate, the search warrants mark a major development in the long-running investigation against Mr. Giuliani. Federal investigators in Manhattan executed search warrants early Wednesday at the home and office of Rudolph W. Giuliani, the former New York City mayor who became President Donald J. Trump's personal lawyer, stepping up a criminal investigation into Mr. Giuliani's dealings in Ukraine. 3 people with knowledge of the investigation said. The investigators seized Mr. Giuliani's electronic devices and searched his Madison Avenue apartment and his Park Avenue office at around 6 a.m., 2 of the people said. The execution of search warrants is an extraordinary action for prosecutors to take against a lawyer, let alone a lawyer of a former president. It is a major development in a long-running investigation into Mr. Giuliani and a remarkable moment in his long arc as a public figure. I personally, this is the kind of, you see, they have to destroy you. They can't just defeat you. I have more honor than these people. As mayor, Mr. Giuliani won national recognition for steering New York through the dark days after the September 11 attacks, and early in his career, he led the same U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan that is investigating him now. Earning a reputation as a hard-charging prosecutor who took on organized crime and corrupt politicians. And, notice, and corrupt politicians. There's where the blades are coming from. I see. Well, you gotta know. You always got to know who's aligned against a man's enemies, define greatly who he is. After recent years, however, his image has been sullied, has it? Oh, it has. Really? Some might say it's been amplified, even, by his effort to help Mr. Trump to dig up dirt in Ukraine on President Biden's son. What? We all seen him with his penis in various people's mouths and various pipes in his mouth doing other things, some of them with, well, frankly, children. So, yeah, sullied, no, Rudy's a hero. Rudy's a hero for bringing that forward. You understand? Now, and Mr. Trump's repeated attempts in court to overturn the results of the 2020 election with baseless claims of widespread fraud. Whoa, let's unwrap that. First off, Donald J. Trump, like every other citizen in the republic, has a right to go to court and hear their complaints If they believe the election was violated, if they believe their civil rights were violated, if they... Now that's right there, you see, it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Just because he's the former president, you see. Now do you see? Notice they don't even want to call him former president here. They're simply calling him Mr. here. So that's Rudy's thing. He defended Trump at court for issues which these people believe that he shouldn't have. And now he's a corrupt person, you see. Rudy Giuliani's lawyer, Robert J. Costello, called the searches unnecessary because his client had offered to answer prosecutors' questions, except those regarding Mr. Giuliani's privileged communications with the former president, which that's a completely legitimate condition. Absolutely understood in law to be, you know. What they did today was legal thuggery, Mr. Costello said. Why would you do this to anyone, let alone someone who was the Associate Attorney General, United States Attorney, the Mayor of New York City, and the personal lawyer of the 45th President of the United States? Yeah, that doesn't seem sensible, does it? FBI agents on Wednesday morning also executed a search warrant at the Washington area home of Victoria Tonsing, a lawyer close to Mr. Giuliani, who had dealings with several Ukrainians involved in seeking negative information on the Bidens, according to people with knowledge of that warrant. So looking for negative information on the Bidens, that is, potential crimes that Joe and his family may have been up to, is now an arrestable offense. Oh yeah, we're the Soviet Union. Yeah, that's People's Republic of China style, though. So what is Joe, the eternal leader of North Korea now, man? Anyhow. Okay, now so they wanted her phone, her records, because she looked for negative dealings with several Ukrainians involved in seeking negative information on the Bidens. So when exactly did it become illegal to talk to Russians, Ukrainians, or any other foreigners, first off? And what exactly, how do you define negative information? Is like, say, proof, like out of Joe's own mouth, like you fire the man or you don't get the $1 billion and son of a bitch, they fired the man. Is that negative information? Because we all saw Joe say that, and I'm not going to pretend I didn't see that. Now, anyhow, Ms. Tonsing, a former federal prosecutor and senior Justice Department official, also has represented some Ukrainian person who's under indictment in the United States and who spoke to Mr. Giuliani. So, a lawyer has a client, and Rudolph Giuliani talked to that client about information that may bring up evidence of a crime, and now Rudy and the gang are being dicked with? You're in a third world banana republic again. Just keep hammering that. Now, the federal authorities have largely focused on whether Mr. Giuliani illegally lobbied the Trump administration in 2019 on behalf of Ukrainian officials and oligarchs. What? So, finding out that there had been some mishappenings in Ukraine and suggesting as the lawyer of the president that the president should talk to the president of Ukraine about the goings-ons in Ukraine, that is no lobbying? What? Okay, anyhow, guys. Now, the Ukrainians were helping Mr. Giuliani search for damaging information on Trump's political rivals, including Joe Biden. Do you mean to say that Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation were involved in Ukraine too? That's who you're trying not to name? Who is in a leading contender for the presidential nomination, and son of a bitch, he bribed him with $1 billion. The United States Attorney's Office in Manhattan and the FBI had sought for months to secure search warrants for Giuliani's phones and electronics devices. Months. Yeah, that's funny because Rudy says that he'd been cooperating the entire time, and I trust one person with the words more than the other person with the words. Less KGB, more KGB. Less KGB, more. You know what I'm trying to say? Yeah. No KGB is ideal, but under Mr. Trump, senior political appointees in the Justice Department repeatedly sought to block such a warrant. Oh, I see. So they conducted purges enough that they got their way over at Justice Department. And after Merrick B. Garland was confirmed, the Justice Department lifted its objection to the search because, you see, Trump's guy was bad, but Biden's guy's good for going after Rudy. See, right? Get this. Now listen. Now we're how far down into the story? While the warrants are not an explicit accusation of wrongdoing, oh, fucking snakes. Their execution shows that the investigation has entered an aggressive new phase. Oh. You know what happens in third world countries after they purge their political rivals, little journalist guys? They go after the journalists. To obtain a search warrant, investigators must persuade a judge they have sufficient reason to believe that a crime was committed. And see FISA above. Keep FISA above in mind through all this. Yeah. The investigation of Mr. Giuliani grew out of a case against two Soviet-born men. Soviet-born, ooh. Who aided his mission in Ukraine to unearth damaging information. Whoa, hold on a second. Whoa. Is the information factual, and does it represent anything that is criminal? That's the only importance about it. Damaging information. What the fuck is this fucking insanity? This is bitch talk. At any rate, now, about Mr. Biden and his son Hunter. Again, did they commit crimes in Ukraine? This is very relative for the personal lawyer of the president and the president of the United States should be very concerned to have any American citizens committed crimes in the Ukraine that are also crimes in the United States. That should be very important, and it shouldn't just be Ukraine. It should be Belarusia, Poland, Romania, Russia, China, Zimbabwe. Do you get what I'm trying to say, bro? Ooh, because of this general commitment to justice. Anyhow, prosecutors charged the men with some non-crimes, and a trial was scheduled. Well, wow, that's so. These people are not being charged in any way with giving fake information to Julie or bad information. Well, then, don't we use people who have been charged with crimes in the federal judicial system all the times information to assess whether other people are innocent or guilty of crimes? I mean, what the hell? Okay. Let's see. Mr. Giuliani became fixated on removing the ambassador, Mrs. Yovanovitch, who she just horribly. It was terrible. But Miss Yovanovitch was part of the bribery schemata with Burisma. So, you obviously want her removed because, boy, they're doing some gymnastics here to make Rudy look like the bad guy. And it's like, Rudy's a friggin' hero for going to Ukraine and unearthing all this so that people know about it. I mean, seriously, though, let's be honest here. As part of the investigation into Mr. Giuliani, prosecutors have explored whether he was working not only for Mr. Trump, but also for Ukrainian officials or businesses. He says no, flatly, by the way. Who wanted the ambassador to be dismissed for their own reasons. Again, why does this ambassador matter so much to federal prosecutors? Oh, it's because Yovanovitch is a Jew and Garland's a Jew. Did you know that? These Jews are working against your best interests, selling you out to both Ukraine and the Chinks. Why? Money. Under the Foreign Agents Registration Act, FARA, which, by the way, is a joke, it is a relatively minor, unpunished, unenforceable crime to try to influence or lobby the United States government at the request or direction of a foreign official without disclosing it to the Justice Department. So, what is influence or lobby the United States government? So, if someone says, "Hey, I have some evidence over here in Ukraine that one of your people over there in the United States committed a crime over here in Ukraine," is that influence or lobbying, or is that just how's that work? This is crazy, right? Let's see. Prosecutors are basically went insane on Rudy. And, yeah, that's it. And, again, like always, the GOP is just out there sucking their thumb. Yeah. Yeah, Dopey Senator Tim Scott gives pathetic pro-BLM rebuttal to Joe Biden's Congress address. Yeah, the GOP are now committed to the power of the people. Peace, man. No justice, no peace. Straight up sold out. House Negroes now. Senator Tim Scott is the GOP's establishment's water-carrying pawn at the moment. I just call him Eustace. And he gave an embarrassingly poor rebuttal to President Impose, I call him the pretender-elect, Joe Biden's congressional address on Wednesday night. During his speech, Biden accused Trump-supporting Republicans of committing a terror attack worse than 9/11 on January 6th, despite the fact that Trump supporters caused no death and despite the fact the only person actually killed was, in fact, a Trump supporter, Ashley Babbitt, who was murdered. Justice for Ashley Babbitt. We're going to need that. We're going to need some justice. Now, the cowardly weak Scott responded to Biden's assertion that Republicans are terrorists by saying how nice Biden's words sounded. Our president seems like a good man. His speech was full of good words, but President Biden promised you a specific kind of leadership. Yeah, we want leadership too. We're not into House Negroes. But thanks, God. Our nation is starving for more than empty platitudes. You see, bro, what they want is they want factories built, infrastructure rebuilt, jobs, general safety in their neighborhood, and their schools reopened. Do those things, bro. I think you'd be sweet. Yeah, that'd be sweet. Could you just do those? We need policies and progress. We need some progress, says the GOP, that bring us closer together. You want to get closer together with Maoist communists who are subverted against the United States. Can you spell... You see, in the third world, if there's ever a second party, it's always the opposition party. It's the party that's allowed to exist. Yeah, this is Mr. Scott's GOP. But 3 months in, the actions of the president and his party are pulling us further and further apart. Okay, so hold on a second. So you want to get closer to this dude? Do you just go swimming with gators for fun? I don't know. Scott also spread Black Lives Matter talking points about institutional racism in his rebuttal to Biden. Let me break it down for you blacks. If you fucking don't like America, Negro, get your ass on a ship and go the fuck back to Africa. There it is. That's it. You move your ass right to Brazil. I know what it feels like to be pulled over for no reason, to be followed around a store while I'm shopping. Listen, Bo, shut the fuck up and go back to Liberia if you don't like it here, son. He contended that the Democrats were not strong enough in attacking the police and bragged about appeasing the Democrats at every turn as BLM terror ravages cities throughout the country. Yeah, Antifa, BLM, Black Bloc are obviously running insane, burnt down billions of dollars of properties, torched out thousands of small businesses, ruined maybe tens of thousands of lives, taken dozens of lives, assassinated at least 4 people that I can think of, brutally attacked hundreds of people. There's no Trump supporting mob that you can find that did anything like this. Not even close. But here's this fucking porch monkey. Believe me, I know firsthand our healing is not finished. I don't have any scars. In 2015, after the shooting of some random whoever, I wrote a bill to fund body cameras. I wish you hadn't. Then we wouldn't have to deal with I can't breathe. You see, bro, what I'm sensing is that the GOP may have sold me out somewhere down this river. I'm thinking that I'm going to be used as bows overboard. Last year, after the deaths of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, both worthless ass lowlives who, frankly, the world is better without those two. Oh, the world is better, you. Yeah, you see, I don't give a fuck. Now, He built up an even bigger police reform proposal. See, the Democrats wanted your police knifed in the back, but this guy wanted your throat slit too. Full hand heat your buddy. Go team conservative. I told you a long time ago, cops, they were going to try to lump you right in with us Nazis, so you may as well stop with the name calling, eh? Now, he says, but my Democratic colleagues, they blocked his stuff. He extended an olive branch. He offered amendments. Oh, I'm sure. Oh, boy. Yeah, I'm titillated. But Democrats used a filibuster to block the debate from even happening. My friends across the aisle all seem to want the issue more than they wanted a solution. So, Democrats rail for a thing. Then the Republicans offer solutions that give the Democrats what they want. Then the Democrats ask for more. This has been happening since Clinton. Yeah. Even though he says there is institutional racism and Americans are racist towards blacks, he also says America isn't a racist country. Yes, it is. It was founded by white men who wanted white people who were free, white, and 21 years of age with good character. It is most definitely racist, my monkey man. Jefferson believed that blacks were like holding a wolf by the fucking ears, and you're like, throw it overboard. Just toss it overboard and let that wolf drown. Toss it. Get rid of it. Send it back. Anyhow. The country just needs to evolve to accept more progressivism, to heal the wounds of yesterday. Scott agrees. Oh, boy. It's backwards to fight discrimination with different types of discrimination. Discrimination, what you call, is just natural in fucking equality. People are not equal. Equality itself is a bullshit lie. I don't know. I was born unequal. I'm an epileptic. You fucking tard. No. Bandy with that, black boy. And it's wrong to try to use our painful past to dishonestly shut down debates in the present. I don't feel no pain over no past. I'm saying, hit him again, James. You understand? I laughed my ass off at Roots. Oh, shit, that shit was funny. When he's like, Kut Kinte. He's like, whoosh, whoosh. What's your name? Whoosh. What's your name? Whoosh. Say your name. Whoosh. Toby. I laughed myself out of my seat. Oh my God, me and doesn't matter. The rest of the boys ain't here no more. But anyhow, he says he's an African American who's voted in the South. He takes voting rights real personal likes. It's like, shut up, black boy. The only reason that he's even be allowed to talk is because he's black. No. It's great, too, where he's like, in a Twitter post, this guy offers platitudes about unity in a time when Democrats want Republicans hunted down like fucking ISIS. What is this guy? It's like, Senator Scott, I'm going to need what are you puffing down there, bro? Is it good? He capitalized other ethnicities, but failed to capitalize white to show he understands the racial pecking order. That's exactly it, too. Whites are not allowed to be large white. Capital white is a racist word now. That's why I always capitalize white unless I'm not thinking about it. But this guy purposely capitalized everything. Black, Hispanic, white, Asian, Republican, Democrat. Yeah, black neighborhoods, bro. Imagine if you had white neighborhoods. Wow, then you could go back to having peaceful neighborhoods. Yeah. So Scott is attempting to push the GOP further leftward on racial issues. He's trying to make them exactly identical to the GOP or to the Democrats. He is set to meet with the family of deceased serial felon fentanyl Floyd this week. I can't breathe. Quit taking fentanyl. Now, listen to what the family wants to talk about. Listen to the proposals. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Scott's capitulation approach will dominate the GOP if the establishment gets their way and erases Trump's populist legacy from the party. And Mitch McConnell is set to want to do that, boy. Woo! Now, meanwhile, they're going even further over on Fox News with Juan Williams. Billy Boy Williams is saying, claiming riots and fires in American cities over last year. Yeah, ain't none of that happened, bull. That was white people. That was white supremacists who infiltrated Antifa, my son. What? You understand? Like, what the fuck? But here we go. Juan Williams is a liberal contributor on the Fox News channel. Liberal? No. He's an open avowed, like, BLM communist. And a regular member of the panel show The Five. During a recent episode, Juan denied that the left-wing riots over the last year even happened. He seems to live in an alternate reality. Okay, Fox News political analyst Juan Williams, co-host of The Five, said Wednesday, "It's a lie that cities burned last summer. It's a lie. I wish there were people on the right who were willing to say we've got a problem with our extreme right. The people who were saying all these awful things before the January 6th riot. What? The people who want to put out likes, oh yeah, the city's burnt last summer. I think it's important that people who are honest in American politics be able to hold honest discussions without allowing the extremists to set the agenda." So Juan just said he thinks it's really important, you white people, like, Ashley Babbitt, you should shut the fuck up or get shot in the throat and die. Yeah. Fox News co-host Katie Pavlich pushed back on Williams' comments on the Capitol breach, noting just the Capitol incidents, what I'm going to call from now on, my fellows. I think it's clear a number of Republicans across the board came out against what happened on January 6th. Oh, a number of Republicans. There are all of about 8 people that are on the Republican side that haven't outright backstabbed everyone and left those people to rot in jail in isolation. There are now more people arrested in America for this January 6th thing than there were for 9/11. Not foreign now, but domestic. Think about that. Brian Kilmeade called out Williams for his erroneous statements. By the way, Juan, the cities did burn. If you count Chicago, Minneapolis, New York, Seattle, Portland, Atlanta, Richmond, Baltimore. I'm not done yet. Philadelphia, fucking Trenton. No. It gets better. Let me see. What is the capital of Oregon again, where they seized the building? Tacoma over. Oh my God. But other than that, this is a pretty good summer, the guy said. Now, Juan says that's not true. I mean, really? Now, meanwhile, Antifa and the gang are burning everything down. Biden Justice Department weighing domestic terrorism law to target white supremacists. Your U.S. Attorney General, the Biden U.S. Justice Department is actively considering whether to give prosecutors new authorities to bring specific charges against domestic terrorists. One of the things we're looking at is, would we need new law authorities to charge you for being an evil white supremacist? Because the current laws on the books to bring charges for arson, violations of weapons, and explosive laws, they're just not quite enough, When you need more laws to lock people up than the United States has, you may have a fucking problem with tyrants, my friend. Yes. The reality is the DOJ is looking to make new laws to persecute people with whom they politically disagree. Absolutely 100%. How do the nose correct? The Justice Department did not mention BLM terrorists or Antifa. They are focused on so-called white supremacists, which is just code for any white person who supports conservatism, populism, nationalism, or anything center of right that they don't support. If you aren't Mitch McConnell, you're a white supremacist. Right. The FBI said white supremacists pose the most lethal threat, despite the fact that BLM and Antifa have caused billions of damage. Again, stabbed people in the streets, murdered people, shot old people, looted, pillaged. Oh, my God. Anyhow, Bloomberg reported that Weigman told the House Appropriations Subcommittee that the one question the DOJ is wrestling with is, are there gaps? Are there people with whom we disagree that we can't arrest? This is the language that Soviet secret police use, bro. Is there some type of conduct that we can envision that we can't cover? Or it would be an otherwise benefit in having something else other than we're having now? Admitting the DOJ is looking to politically persecute the people that they're against. Currently, no U.S. law lets the government designate domestic extremists or as terrorists or bring specific charges for domestic terrorism. Meaning, you domestic extremists, people who believe in the Constitution, they can't charge you as terrorists quite yet. There's no law against being that, no. That contrasts with laws to combat international terrorism, which allows the government to designate groups or bring charges for providing those groups with material support. There is a cancer in our society, said Representative Matt Cartwright, Democrat from Pennsylvania. Yeah, people like you. Right-wing extremist attacks and plots have greatly outnumbered those from all other groups combined. Only because the FBI has cooperated in not actually calling BLM and Antifa organized groups, and so labeling their attacks as sort of scattered, and even listing Antifa actions as the actions of right-wing. Oh my God, to the point where an Antifa supporter shot people, and again, no mention of the BLM or Antifa terrorists, and no mention of black-on-black violence that kills hundreds of blacks every year in Chicago, or the mention of the fact that the blacks are running loose down in cities and just looting and pillaging. No word about blacks attacking Asians. The Biden regime is specifically hunting down the white folks. It's the white peoples. Now, one second. So, guys, what do you think about that? The white folks be hunted down. Huh? That's going to be one of those statements that you're like, I just read that on any type of media in the Anglosphere. It's funny because a long time ago there was the rivers of blood where these people, they would chase people down the streets and such. What's much different from all this? This is just a slow rolling descent into some sort of either Maoist style, Khmer Rouge fucking madness, or at very best, you'll have some sort of sanitized show trials, which, again, will have their own brutalities. And the very, very best of these technocrat fucking tyrants, only they just want to drug you and lie to you all day, Brave New World style, rather than kick you in the face like 1984. Oh, joy of wonders, boys. Oh, the loveliness. At any rate, my friends, stay well. God bless. Take care.